Chapter 2251. And this was only the power of his aura. The experts of the Star Alliance looked at Yi Qianxian with indescribable shock in their eyes. Especially Mo Zhuling. She was suddenly enveloped by Yi Qianxian's aura. Even though she used all the treasures that the leader of the Star Alliance had given her, she couldn't move at all. Only now did she know how powerful this man was. Could it be that he was still hiding his true strength when he was hunting the nine-tailed fox? Otherwise, with the strength that he was showing now, how could those experts of the Star Alliance return to the Star Alliance alive? Mo Zhuling's face was full of shock. But he didn't know that Yi Qianxian's meridians were limited at that time. Before he killed the nine-tailed fox and took her essence blood to prolong his life. With his strength, he couldn't free himself to kill those experts of the Star Alliance who were secretly plotting against him while he was dealing with the nine-tailed fox. But now he had already taken the essence blood of the nine-tailed fox, and his meridians had recovered a lot of strength. Now the strength that he could withstand was greatly increased. Naturally, the strength that Yi Qianxian could use was also greater. Yi Qianxian's full strength was about 50% of his strength when he was at his peak. But it couldn't last long. Otherwise, the nine-tailed fox's essence blood would be used up too much, and his meridians would collapse again. At that time, the effect of the 3 years of life extension would disappear completely. But even if he could only attack for a moment, it was enough to kill all of Mo Zhuling and the others in front of him. Including the people who were hiding around her, the people she was supposed to protect. Get out here. Yi Qianxian's cold voice sounded. In the next second, under the wide-open eyes of Mo Zhuling and the others, figures were all squeezed out of the starry sky by the terrifying power that was wildly overflowing from Yi Qianxian's body. Uncle Zhang. Seeing those people being forced out of the starry sky, Missouri Zhuling's beautiful eyes widened. His eyes were full of disbelief. Uncle Zhang was the leader of these people. At the same time, he was the captain of the personal guards of the Star Alliance's leader. At the same time, he was one of the 9 Amethyst Elder powerhouses. And the strength of the Star Alliance's personal guards were all at least at the Amethyst Elder realm. These people were all the trusted aides of the Star Alliance's leader. It was unknown how much manpower and effort was spent to cultivate them. If it wasn't necessary, they wouldn't be used. Uncle Zhang's people's Uncle Zhang's was Uncle Zhang. The latter's strength and identity were a mystery. Uncle Zhang's Uncle Zhang was the Star Alliance's. Kami Zhang's. Thus, Uncle Zhang brought the Star Alliance's personal guards to protect Mo Zhuling. The latter's confidence all came from Uncle Zhang and the others. But at this moment, nearly 20 Amethyst Elder powerhouses were all frozen in midair by Yi Qianxian's aura. They didn't even have the strength to fight back. Even Uncle Zhang, a 9th Realm Amethyst Elder, whose strength wasn't any weaker than the Grand Elders of the main hall, was the same. The complexions of the Star Alliance's powerhouses finally changed. They looked at the man in front of them, who was like a king descending to the world. They didn't know how he could be so strong. Even a 9th level Amethyst Elder could be easily stopped by him. Just how strong was the other party? Chapter 2252. Qingtong. He could feel Luo Qingtong's aura instantly vanish from the True Spill continent. She had truly vanished. Her aura no longer existed within the True Spill continent. Yi Qianren didn't have time to deal with Mo Zhuling and the others. He flicked his sleeves and rushed towards True Spill continent. Master? Seeing Yi Qianxian's sudden movements, Bei Qing and the others were shocked. What was going on? What happened to the evil doctor? Everyone knew just how important Luo Qingtong was to Yi Qianxian. It could be said that 100 Star Alliance members added together weren't as important as a single hair on Luo Qingtong's head. Immediately, everyone followed Yi Qianxian towards the True Spill continent. As Yi Qianxian's figure left, the Star Alliance powerhouses instantly regained their freedom. Young miss, this time you've really stirred up a great disaster. Uncle Zhang's complexion was ugly. As he looked at the departing figures of Yi Qianxian and the others, he was horrified to the extreme. He had just been forced out of the starry skies, and all his struggles had been useless. Finally, he had been suppressed by the other party's mountain-like strength. He hadn't been able to use the least bit of his strength. How had the young miss managed to provoke such a powerhouse? And he had even forced them to surround and kill them. What the hell is going on here? He angrily glared at the people around Mo Zhuling. You accompanied the young miss to that low-level continent to invite that powerhouse, so how did things end up like this? Uncle Zhang's complexion was ugly. If they didn't tell the truth, he would tear them all to shreds. Because they were too strong, they didn't want to enter the True Spill continent, lest they arouse the other party's hostility. Who would have thought that Mo Zhuling and the others would go and bring them out? But in the end, the other party wanted to kill them. If they didn't explain this matter clearly, he would immediately skin them alive. The experts of the Star Alliance, on the other hand, didn't dare to hide the truth when they saw the fury on his face. Not to mention that they had always been against Mo Zhuling doing this, but the latter still insisted on doing it. Now that they had angered Mo Zhuling, who was much more powerful than they had imagined, how could they be willing to take the blame for him? He immediately recounted everything that had happened in the True Spill continent. Finally, he emphasized that they had repeatedly tried to dissuade him, but Mo Zhuling had stubbornly refused to listen. Everyone's words were exactly the same. When Uncle Zhang heard this, his expression turned even uglier. "Eldest miss, you're being silly? How could Mo Zhuling force such a strong cultivator? Even if the other party didn't have such strength in the end and really followed her back to Star Alliance, it would be good enough if he didn't find an opportunity to make the Star Alliance fall apart." Eldest miss actually hoped that the other party would change his mind and be together with her. But she didn't know that what such a strong cultivator hated the most was being threatened. Not to mention that the eldest miss had been aggressive and had threatened the other party more than once. Uncle Zhang's complexion was ugly to the extreme. He originally thought that if this matter wasn't serious, he would immediately take Mo Zhuling and leave this place and avoid this strong cultivator. But now that something like this had happened, he feared that the other party wouldn't let it go. Not to mention, listening to the other party's words, he feared that something had happened to the precious young girl he had left behind in the True Spill continent. If this matter was blamed on the Star Alliance, there would be no end of trouble. Chapter 2253. Now that things have come to this, there's no other way. He coldly looked at the Star Alliance members and said, "The only thing we can do now is to immediately gather all the elite experts of the Star Alliance and eliminate this expert. Otherwise, endless trouble." Uncle Zhang's voice was cold. Especially when the other party was the person who had previously snatched the nine-tailed fox that they wanted to kill. He thought of the secret information he had learned from the mouths of the Star Alliance's chief hall masters who had luckily escaped. They had secretly plotted against the mysterious expert and had almost let him be killed by the nine-tailed celestial fox. These grudges made Uncle Zhang's tone of voice not have the slightest hesitation when he gave the order. In an instant, he crushed the Star Alliance's emergency mobilization order in his hand. There were only a few of these in the entire Star Alliance. Apart from the Star Alliance's Grand Elders who had absolute control over most of the power in the Star Alliance, Uncle Zhang was the only one who had one. Once the Star Alliance's emergency mobilization order was issued, no matter where the experts of the Star Alliance were, they would immediately be summoned. Of course, this was only limited to the top purple venerable experts. Under normal circumstances, this order would only be used when the survival of the Star Alliance was in danger. Under Uncle Zhang's crushing, the Star Alliance's emergency mobilization order instantly condensed into a huge formation. Then, the top purple venerable experts of the Star Alliance all around the Star Alliance received the summons from the Star Alliance's emergency mobilization order. Apart from those who were in seclusion or in special secret realms and regions, and were unable to receive the summons, everyone else appeared in the formation. What's going on? A purple venerable level 9 expert of the Star Alliance rushed in front of Uncle Zhang. His gaze swept over the group and coldly said, "Why did you forcibly use the Star Alliance's emergency mobilization order?" The Star Alliance emergency mobilization order cannot be used unless it concerns the life and death of the Star Alliance. However, when the top experts of the Star Alliance arrived, all they saw was a desolate and remote area. This region was located at the very edge of the Star Alliance's star field. It was surrounded by level 8 and 9 low-level continents. Even level 7 ones were extremely rare. How could there be anything that could endanger the survival of the Star Alliance in such a place? This 9th-level Amethyst Elder's face was extremely stern. How could Uncle Zhang and the others expose Mo Zhuling's wrongdoings to the public? It must be known that Mo Zhuling had done something that could destroy the Star Alliance and offend such a powerful and terrifying expert. Even with the protection of the Alliance Master, it would be difficult for the young miss to escape punishment. It was very likely that she would lose her identity and everything she had. Everyone thought this way and immediately kept their mouths shut. As for the people by Mo Zhuling's side, although they dared to tell Uncle Zhang the truth, it was because they couldn't hide it from him. Uncle Zhang would definitely protect Mo Zhuling. However, in front of these top experts of the Star Alliance, they didn't dare to make a sound. Once this matter was exposed, not only Mo Zhuling, but even they wouldn't be able to escape punishment. Furthermore, the young miss had the protection of the Alliance Master. They wouldn't be so lucky. When the top experts of the Star Alliance appeared, Mo Zhuling fiercely bit his lips. She looked in Yi Qianxian's direction. She was unwilling to give up on the man's handsome appearance and powerful strength. Something seemed to have happened to that seductive bitch. If something really happened to her, and Yi Qianxian was under the pressure of the top experts of the Star Alliance, was willing to abandon their former enmity and compromise with the Star Alliance, would she still have a chance to be with him? Thinking this, Mo Zhuling's heart began to violently beat. She looked towards the True Spill continent and prayed in her heart. It would be best if Luo Qingtong died. Chapter 2254. True Spill Continent, Hidden World. Yi Qianxian's figure flashed, and he appeared at the place where Luo Qingtong had disappeared. Master. Feng Yu knelt on the ground, not daring to get up. His master had ordered him to protect the evil doctor, but he had allowed her to disappear without a trace in front of him. This was a mistake he didn't dare to explain. Yi Qianxian didn't look at him. Instead, he looked at the place where Luo Qingtong had disappeared. In that place, Yi Qianxian could feel some spatial fluctuations vibrating. Others couldn't see these vibrations, but in Yi Qianxian's eyes they clearly existed. His eyes were icy cold and the aura around his body shook. In the next second, Yi Qianxian's body vibrated with an extremely terrifying aura, spreading to the place where Luo Qingtong had disappeared. These spatial fluctuations were extremely subtle. Besides Yi Qianxian, no one else could see them. Rumble, rumble, rumble. As Yi Qianxian's terrifying aura spread out, the entire hidden world as well as True Spill continent began to violently tremble. Seeing this, Su Yu and the others who had been in tears because of Luo Qingtong's disappearance, slowly calmed down. They looked towards Yi Qianxian's direction with hope. With dark revered strength, he might be able to find out what had happened to Luo Qingtong, what that vortex was, and whether or not there was any danger. As everyone watched Luo Qingtong disappear, they nearly went crazy. They couldn't imagine what would happen if something happened to Luo Qingtong because of this. As for Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others who stood beside Yi Qianxian, they were also frightened. Along the way, no one knew better than them just how important Luo Qingtong was in Yi Qianxian's heart. The young girl was Yi Qianxian's only reason and goal for living. It was because of Luo Qingtong's existence that Yi Qianxian had changed his mind. He had gone from going with the flow to fighting against the heavens. He wasn't willing to accept the fate of only being able to live to 28 years old. It could be said that Luo Qingtong was Yi Qianxian's only hope to live. Now that the young girl had disappeared, if something really happened to her, not to mention the star territory, even the entire spacetime outside would find it difficult to withstand Yi Qianxian's wrath. Everyone's hearts trembled with fear. Yi Qianren's aura entered deep into the spatial ripples, carefully investigating the direction and origin of the spatial ripples. However, nothing at all. Yi Qianxian's soul force and consciousness instantly searched the entire True Spill continent and the hidden world space mezzanine. He searched every single place, but he couldn't find Luo Qingtong's aura. The young girl was no longer in True Spill continent. Not only that, but she wasn't even in this star territory. Yi Qianxian's eyes were ice cold. His aura continued to penetrate deep into these space fluctuations, but it was blocked. A continent barrier like True Spill continent couldn't stop him. Only the barriers between star fields could do that. Yi Qianxian's eyes were chilling to the extreme. Without thinking, he continued to stimulate the strength within his body. At this moment, the meridians in his body even emitted a popping sound, and faintly discernible blood seeped out from his body. Master. Chapter 2255. No, the amount of power Master was using had already surpassed the amount of blood essence he had obtained from killing the nine-tailed fox. If this went on, his 3 years of life extension would be gone. Not only that, but his meridians would become even more fragile than before. Her master was already 28 years old. If this went on, Master might not be able to live long enough to find the evil doctor. Master, no. You can't continue to use your power like this. The group of people hurriedly rushed towards Yi Qianxian. Seeing Yi Qianxian's bloodshot eyes about to push them away, the group of people hurriedly shouted, "Master, if you do this, you will hurt yourself. What will happen to the evil doctor then?" Yi Qianren turned a deaf ear to the words that they had said earlier. However, as soon as they finished speaking, Yi Qianxian's sleeves suddenly froze. These words were spoken by Bei Qing. Feng Yu and the others gave him a look of appreciation, and then hurriedly said to Yi Qianxian, "That's right. Master, if something happens to you, what will happen to the evil doctor? Don't forget, the evil doctor's talent is unparalleled. Her talent is incomparably valiant, and her abilities are outstanding. It's fine if she's in the true Spill continent, but if she goes out into the star field, who knows how many people will covet and spy on her. Master, you mustn't let your emotions affect your decisions. The group of people tried their best to persuade him. At this moment, only the matter of Luo Qingtong could appease Yi Qianxian's violent emotions, and allow his master to regain his rationality. Whoever started the trouble should untie it. Luo Qingtong had always been the most important thing in Yi Qianxian's heart. Bang! As soon as their voices came out, Yi Qianxian's sleeves suddenly changed direction, and heavily slammed into a place not far behind them. His eyes seemed to contain countless saber lights and blood swords, and they were extremely sharp as if they could pierce through the sky. It's the aura of an inscription. Yi Qianxian's gaze was cold. Although his search was fruitless, he was still able to discern some things from it. The formation of those spatial fluctuations was not accidental. Luo Qingtong's disappearance was caused by the power of inscriptions. Was it caused by the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace? The light in Yi Qianxian's eyes was as sharp as a sword. He forcibly suppressed the tyrannical aura in his heart that wanted to destroy everything. With a flick of his sleeve, he collected the remaining spatial fluctuations into his sleeve. He wanted to return to that side, and use the spatial fluctuations to find Luo Qingtong's location. The girl would be fine. He wouldn't let anything happen to her. He would definitely investigate the matter behind the Immortal Slayer Palace thoroughly. Yi Qianren's finger gently stroked the surface of the 10-directional dragon ring. After confirming that there was no warning from the aura of the ring, Yi Qianren's eyes suddenly turned cold and his figure disappeared in front of everyone. Let's go. As his cold voice sounded, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others all disappeared in front of everyone. Boom. When Yi Qianxian's figure appeared outside the true Spill continent again, the top powerhouses of the Star Alliance had already learned from Uncle Zhang that there was an extremely powerful powerhouse here who wanted to harm the Star Alliance. Chapter 2256. They hid the fact that Mo Zhuling had taken a liking to her and wanted to forcefully bring her back to the Star Alliance. He didn't even hesitate to threaten her with the woman he loved. They knew that if they said that, the top experts of the Star Alliance definitely wouldn't go against Yi Qianxian. After all, the man was strong and Mo Zhuling was in the wrong in the first place. This was completely a personal grudge between her and Yi Qianxian. It had nothing to do with the Star Alliance. However, Yi Qianxian was so strong that if they didn't borrow the strength of the top experts of the Star Alliance, they wouldn't be able to deal with him at all. Therefore, Uncle Zhang and the others insisted that Yi Qianxian wanted to harm the people of the Star Alliance. In addition to the matter of the heavenly nine-tailed fox, the top experts of the Star Alliance immediately believed them. They believed that Yi Qianxian deliberately came to cause trouble for the Star Alliance. The moment Yi Qianren's figure appeared in the starry sky, a group of top experts from the Star Alliance stared at him with an unfriendly expression. You're the one who stole the heavenly nine-tailed fox that the Star Alliance was supposed to kill and injured the experts of the Star Alliance? A top expert of the Star Alliance, Purple Supremacy Level 9, looked at Yi Qianxian with an unkind expression. He was on good terms with one of the Star Alliance Grand Hall Masters who went to kill the heavenly nine-tailed fox. The other party was injured by Yi Qianxian and was still recuperating. The people of the Star Alliance were searching everywhere for the person who killed the heavenly nine-tailed fox. They didn't expect the person to be on a low-class continent. When Yi Qianxian saw their imposing auras and figures, he coldly replied with a single word. Scram. He had to immediately return to that side. He didn't have time to tangle with these people here. Impudent. The top experts of the Star Alliance were furious. Which one of them was not a Grand Hall Master of a region? Who knew how many subordinates they commanded? Their strength was enough to show disdain for everyone. When they saw Yi Qianxian treating them like they were nothing, they immediately rushed towards him, not even in the mood to question him. Since the other party was so arrogant, it was obvious that what Uncle Zhang and the others said about the other party wanting to harm the Star Alliance was true. If they let him leave this time, who knew what he would do to the Star Alliance in the future? With that thought in mind, the top players of the Star Alliance immediately attacked Yi Qianxian. Yi Qianxian's eyes turned cold as he watched them charge towards him. The aura in his body that was on the verge of rioting could no longer be held back. With a boom, it violently surged out of his body. Rumble. In an instant, the starry sky collapsed, heaven and earth turned upside down, and blood splattered everywhere. All the top experts of the Star Alliance who rushed within 100 meters of Yi Qianxian exploded and died in an instant. Their bodies were penetrated by the aura of power that shot out of Yi Qianxian's body. With a boom, they exploded into countless pieces in front of everyone's eyes. Countless terrifying auras swirled around Yi Qianxian's body. The starry sky seemed to be just a stepping stone under his feet. The man stepped on the starry sky. His strength was like a dragon and his aura was like a torch. He was as mighty as the god of the heavens. He was as mighty as the emperor of the demons. At this moment, Yi Qianxian's violent and uncontrollable anger and coldness due to Luo Qingtong's disappearance suddenly erupted. He simply raised his hand. Boom. Chapter 2257. Then with a bang he was crushed into a pile of flesh and blood under everyone's shocked gazes. A peak level 9 Amethyst Elder was actually unable to fight back against Yi Qianxian's casual move. The Star Alliance's peak level experts who were charging towards Yi Qianxian were instantly stunned. They looked at Yi Qianxian's direction in shock. They didn't expect the other party to be so strong. Uncle Zhang and the others who were about to charge forward with the Star Alliance's peak-level experts froze on the spot. They looked at Yi Qianxian in disbelief. Their hearts were overwhelmed with shock. How could this be? How could he be so strong? Everyone's hearts turned cold. Uncle Zhang deeply felt that he had made a huge mistake. He originally thought that by using the Star Alliance's emergency summons, he could use the advantage of numbers to deal with Yi Qianxian. But now she saw the man casually killing a group of experts. Not to mention the peak-level experts he had gathered from the Star Alliance. Even if there were 10 more batches, they still wouldn't be Yi Qianming's match. What was going on? How could the other party be so strong? Who was he? 3 stars? 1 star? Which powerful star domain was he from? How could he appear on a low-level continent where the Star Alliance was located? Uncle Zhang was about to go crazy. The people who were even crazier than him were the peak-level experts he had summoned from the Star Alliance. Yi Qianming's strength was completely beyond their imagination. How could such a person say that he had ill intentions towards the Star Alliance? He could destroy the Star Alliance with a raise of his hand, alright? He could kill a level 9 Amethyst Elder like a chicken or a dog. With this kind of strength, why would he need to scheme against the Star Alliance? The peak-level experts of the Star Alliance all had ashen expressions. How could they not know that there was something fishy going on? They must have been deceived by Uncle Zhang and the others. As for Mo Zhuling, when Yi Qianming's aura erupted, his eyes were filled with shock as he looked in Yi Qianming's direction. So strong. He was actually this strong. It was far more powerful than what she had imagined. All the thoughts in Mo Zhuling's mind were shattered. She originally thought that after everyone captured Yi Qianming, she would run over to plead for mercy and persuade the other party. Who would have thought that this man was so strong that he could kill their Star Alliance's top expert with just a raise of his hand? With this kind of strength, all the things she thought of before were a complete joke. Such a man was powerful, handsome, and had an extraordinary aura. It wasn't hers. Mo Zhuling bit his lips and looked in Yi Qianming's direction. His eyes were filled with infatuation and fear. After Yi Qianming killed the top expert of the Star Alliance, he waved his hand. Boom boom boom. A terrifying aura surged around him and in an instant, it pierced through the bodies of countless top experts of the Star Alliance. The faces of the top experts of the Star Alliance were like doomsday. Uncle Zhang and the others looked at the hell-like scene in front of them and felt their scalps tingle. Just as their legs turned to jelly and they were about to collapse to the ground, boom! In the starry sky not far from the True Spill continent, a huge teleportation array suddenly appeared in front of them. Wong. Silhouettes appeared one after another within it. These figures had extremely terrifying auras lingering around them. Chapter 2258. Strong. So strong. As they looked at the figures that appeared, the shock and horror on their faces had reached the peak. Compared to when Yi Qianxian had revealed his strength, they were even more shocked and frightened. How could this be? Where did all these people come from? How could they appear in this tiny star territory of theirs? At this moment, in front of the numerous peak powerhouses of the Star Alliance, there were figures that were countless times stronger than them. Of these figures that appeared, any one of them had strength that could crush all of them present. Every movement they made was filled with pressure. Their auras soared to the heavens, shaking the heavens. As these figures and the massive array formation appeared, even the True Spill continent and the surrounding continents in the starry skies began to fiercely tremble. They were completely struck by the powerful auras that condensed from the figures that appeared in the array formation. Rumble, rumble, rumble. One figure after another appeared from the massive array formation. Thousands of people, 10,000 people, tens of thousands of people. Countless auras shot into the heavens, nearly causing the entire starry skies to collapse. This is? The numerous peak powerhouses of the Star Alliance were already dumbfounded. At this moment, as they looked at these figures whose auras soared to the heavens, their bodies began to violently tremble. If it weren't for the last trace of a powerhouse's dignity and reason supporting them, they feared they would have already fallen to their knees, limp and weak. Too strong. Too strong. The strength that overflowed from these people completely surpassed their imaginations. And these people that appeared in front of them numbered in the tens of thousands. The group of people began to violently tremble. As for Yi Qianxian, he had already stopped before the massive array formation appeared. His eyes were ice cold as he looked at the figures that constantly appeared from the massive array formation. He looked at the continents that were violently shaking, especially the True Spill continent. It was shaking so fiercely that it seemed as if it would disintegrate at any moment. The light in Lin Ming's eyes became even colder. He lifted his hand and the aura around him instantly surged out, covering the True Spill continent in front of him. Beneath the shroud of his aura, the violently shaking True Spill continent instantly stabilized. The expressions of Beiqing, Fengyu, and the others beside him changed when they saw the figures that appeared in the formation. Tianxian Guard. Among the 18 imperial guards of Tiandu, the strongest guard. His name was Tian, a name bestowed by the emperor. It's the people from Tiandu. Fengyu's face was solemn as he slowly said. They had long known that after Yi Qianxian returned to Tiandu and took away the Shifang dragon ring that symbolized the successor, the people of Tiandu would sooner or later come knocking on their door. However, he didn't expect it to be at this moment. Not only that, it was the strongest of the 18 imperial guards, the Heavenly Profound Guard. The Heavenly Profound Guard was the head of the 18 imperial guards of Tiandu. Without the emperor's permission, it could not be used. Clearly, they had appeared here at this moment because Supreme Tiandu, who had been in seclusion for many years and had not appeared in front of people for a long time, had awakened. No wonder they hadn't received any news that the Heavenly Profound Guard had appeared near the True Spill continent. If the emperor were to personally act, then the aura blockade here would have no effect at all. Chapter 2259. Thinking of this, Fengyu suddenly felt very lucky. Fortunately, the evil doctor was not here. Otherwise it would be troublesome. These people were definitely here for the matter between Master and the evil doctor. While Fengyu was thinking, the huge array in front of them had stopped operating. A group of heavenly Xian guards in dark black armor densely filled this part of the starry sky. Among them, a beautiful woman stepped out. Her hair was red and her clothes were red. She had the symbol of a noble. The aura around her was astonishing. With every step she took, the starry sky around her would shatter, revealing a deep and dark space that was like a black hole. Amidst the shattered starry sky, she walked to Yi Qianxian. Her beautiful eyes stared straight at Yi Qianxian's handsome face. Then she respectfully knelt down and bowed. Situ-Mei-er, by His Majesty's order, respectfully invites the young emperor to return to the palace. Respectfully invites the young emperor to return to the palace. Following Situ-Mei-er's voice, the surrounding heavenly Xian guards all half knelt on the ground. Their voices shook the heavens and their aura soared to the heavens. Seeing this scene, the people of the Star Alliance were even more shocked. They looked at Yi Qianxian in horror, and the shock in their hearts was 1,000 times greater than before. Who was this person? How could he appear in their small galaxy of the Star Alliance? This was simply trying to scam people to death. The faces of the top experts of the Star Alliance were pale. The Purple Elder, a level 9 expert, looked like he was about to faint from anger. Yi Qianxian's background was too frightening. Such a scene, not to mention the entire Star Alliance, even if it was a galaxy, no one would be able to stop him. How could such a person appear in the territory of the Star Alliance? He even had a feud with them. The group of top experts in the Star Alliance thought about it and were about to go crazy. Mo Zhuling's face was also deathly pale. She looked at the crimson-clothed woman who had appeared in front of Yi Qianxian and then looked at the Heavenly Profound Guards. She finally realized how laughable and delusional her thoughts about Yi Qianxian were. The other party was like the clouds and the moon. They were not on the same level as her. Don't even mention the fact that she forced him to join Star Alliance. Even if she tied him to her side, he wouldn't even look at her. Mo Zhuling's heart was filled with jealousy as she thought of this. Because she knew that the noble and dignified Yi Qianxian already had a true love in his heart. She was a young girl from a low-level continent. She was the trash girl that she looked down on. Thinking of this, she bit her lips tightly. At this moment, Yi Qianren's eyes were coldly looking at Situ-Mei-er and the others. He did not expect that the Heavenly Profound Guard would come personally to invite him. My father's orders? His voice was cold. What else did he say? He had mobilized such a large force just to invite him back to divine capital. His father had really gone to great lengths. Yi Qianxian's eyes were cold and heavy, and his face was full of mockery. Situ Meir immediately said in a low voice, His Majesty has ordered us to invite your highness and the woman you love back to divine capital. She narrowed her eyes slightly, hiding the jealousy in her eyes that was difficult to hide. Chapter 2260. After this matter spread throughout Sky Capital, it was unknown how many women were enraged and gnashed their teeth in anger. Yi Qianxian's appearance was handsome and his strength was peerless. In this world no one could compare to him. Even if they knew that he wouldn't live past 28 years old, there were still many who wanted to offer themselves to him. But His Highness didn't care about the others' status or how beautiful they were. He didn't care about them at all. He had never allowed anyone to get close to him. They thought that because His Highness wouldn't live past 28 years old, he didn't want to get close to women and didn't want to leave behind his bloodline. But they didn't think that not only did he have a beloved girl, but he also had a child with her. Thinking of the news that came from Sky Capital, Situ Meir fiercely clenched her teeth. But at this moment she heard Yi Qianxian's voice ring out, chilling to the bone. This lord advises you all to give up on this idea. He coldly looked at Situ Meir, the pressure from his body overflowing, directly pressing down on Situ Meir's body. With a puff, Situ Meir spat out a mouthful of blood. She half knelt in front of Yi Qianxian, her lowered eyes filled with horror. His Highness' strength was still so strong. He was almost 28 years old. His unparalleled strength had been suppressed to the extreme. Even so, the strength that he could erupt with could easily crush them. Situ Meir bit her lips, nodding unwillingly, Yes. We obey your Highness' orders. Yi Qianxian's strength was something that even the Emperor feared. Unless it was absolutely necessary, they would not and could not afford to anger Yi Qianren. This time, they had come to True Spill Continent because the Emperor had ordered them to bring back His Highness. But as for the woman he loved, it didn't matter whether they brought her back or not. She was a girl from a so-called low-level continent. Who knew what kind of dog luck she had stumbled upon to climb up to His Highness? She had obtained his favor. If she didn't have His Highness' protection, who knew what would have happened to her? In this boundless star territory in the 10 worlds, there were people who overestimated themselves and died every day. The other party should be no exception. Her heart filled with disdain, Situ Meir had no intention of treating Luo Qingtong as an opponent. After answering, she immediately looked at Yi Qianxian and said, In that case, Your Highness, please return to the palace with Meir. Yi Qianxian's eyes were cold and he ignored her. He was going back there anyway. It was just that Situ Meir and the others had come at the right time. Otherwise, it was unknown how many of the heavenly profound guards who came today would be able to return alive. But Yi Qianxian was clear. Since his father wanted him to go back, then he must have a backup plan. This time, they were here to confirm where his weakness was. If Luo Qingtong was here, she would definitely become their main target. His father would not be satisfied until he controlled or destroyed everything that he cared about. Yi Qianxian looked at the top experts of the Star Alliance in front of him. The latter had long since given up on the idea of being enemies with Yi Qianxian. Their legs trembled. The moment Yi Qianxian looked over, they desperately knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. Your Highness, please spare us. Your Highness, please spare us. The top experts of the Star Alliance didn't know Yi Qianxian's true identity. Chapter 2261. If they didn't know that they wouldn't be forgiven by someone as strong as Yi Qianxian, they would have pushed Mo Zhuling and the others to their deaths a long time ago. She was the daughter of the Alliance Master, so what if they angered the Alliance Master? They didn't even consider it. So what if they angered the Alliance Master? Mo Zhuling didn't know his limits and tried in vain to control such a strong person. She was simply blinded by greed. The top fighters of the Star Alliance weren't fools. Even if they had been deceived by Uncle Zhang and the others. But now, after fighting with Yi Qianren, he had seen the other party's strength. Now they saw the Tianxian guards line up in strength. They must have been kicked in the head by a donkey to believe Uncle Zhang and the others. Since Uncle Zhang and the others had lied to them, and the other party wasn't someone who didn't know how to prioritize. Was there even a need to think about where the source of all this was? Other than Mo Zhuling, who else could make Uncle Zhang and the others protect him at all costs and even lie to them? When they thought about Mo Zhuling's sudden appearance in this remote star sector, and the rumors and clues in the Star Alliance that said Mo Zhuling was searching for the whereabouts of a mysterious strong person, How could they not know what was going on? This Emo Zhuling really overestimated himself. A toad lusting after a swan's meat. He actually dared to covet such a strong person. They didn't know what they had done wrong to provoke the other party to attack them. Now, he remembered them and even used the Star Alliance's emergency summons to take the blame. The top fighters of the Star Alliance hated Emo Zhuling, Uncle Zhang, and the others to death. They didn't kick them to death because they still wanted to leave them for Yi Qianxian to deal with. The top fighters of the Star Alliance kowtowed with all their might. Situ Mayer, who was watching from the side, immediately asked, "Your Highness, these people have been disrespectful to you. Do you need to get rid of them?" When Situ Mayer said to eliminate them, she naturally didn't mean killing the top powerhouses of the Star Alliance. Instead, he would wipe out the entire Star Alliance and even all the star zones under the Star Alliance. The young Emperor of Tiandu was not to be trifled with. None of them dared to be disrespectful to His Highness. To them, the people in front of them were worse than ants, yet they dared to act arrogantly in front of His Highness. If they did not eliminate it, where would the dignity of Tiandu be? When Situ Mayer said this, her eyes were completely unperturbed. She was in charge of the Heavenly Dark Guard and had destroyed countless realms and star regions. The barren land of the Star Alliance was nothing to her. If Yi Qianxian agreed, she would immediately take action. However, as her voice fell, Yi Qianxian coldly said, "No need." Luo Qingtong was no longer in the True Spill continent. There was no danger of the sector beasts being exposed. To Yi Qianxian, killing these people of the Star Alliance was no longer important. Moreover, Yi Qianxian's eyes coldly swept over Situ Mayer and the others. With the Heavenly Dark Guard here, the existence of the True Spill continent had been exposed to the people of Tiandu. He had to return to Tiandu to investigate the whereabouts of Luo Qingtong. It was impossible for him to stay here and prevent the people of Tiandu from moving against the True Spill continent. This continent had an extraordinary significance to Luo Qingtong. Yi Qianxian would never allow anything to happen to it. Chapter 2262. Yi Qianxian would not allow a single blade of grass or tree to be damaged. And this was left to the local tyrant, the Star Alliance. It was far better than leaving it to anyone else. Most importantly, Yi Qianxian wanted to give Situ Mayer and the others a deterrent. He wanted to let them know that this continent, this star field, was under his watch at all times. If anyone from Sky Capital dared to move against them, he would make them die without a burial ground, their entire race exterminated. Yi Qianxian loved Luo Qingtong. He loved her so much that he could empathize with all her emotions. He would not allow anything to be lost by his young girl's side. If she wasn't here, he would protect her. For this reason, he was willing to let go of the Star Alliance. Otherwise, with Yi Qianxian's previous temperament, he wouldn't have cared about the life or death of the people of True Spill continent. But because Luo Qingtong cared, he also cared. No one can touch the people of True Spill continent. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. Keep a close eye on them. If anyone dares to touch them, write down their names and report them to me. Otherwise, everyone from the Star Alliance will be guilty of the same crime. This sovereign will personally wipe out all of you in this star field. No one can escape. As Yi Qianxian's words left his mouth, all the peak powerhouses of the Star Alliance nodded their heads like they were pounding garlic. To them, being able to keep their lives was already a great blessing. How could they dare to bargain with Yi Qianren and Yi Qianren? Wasn't it just protecting the safety of the people of True Spill continent? There was absolutely no problem. This star field was completely under the control of the people from the Star Alliance. As long as they kept a close eye on True Spill continent, they would know if anyone dared to move against them. At that time, even if they had to risk their lives, they would still report this matter to Yi Qianxian. Otherwise they would be guilty of the same crime. How unjust would their deaths be? The top powerhouses of the Star Alliance complied, and in an instant, Situ Mayer's eyes flashed with a trace of haze. His Highness was extremely ruthless in this matter. It seemed that no one in Tiandu could touch those who had ideas. But, does His Highness care so much about that girl? He didn't hesitate to plan for her to such an extent. Just how capable was the other party to be so generous? Situ Mayer's heart was filled with jealousy. Who among these people who were born in Tiandu did not know that Yi Qianxian's character was cold, cruel, and ruthless? Because he could only live to 28 years old, and because he had the heavenly veins constitution and was extremely talented, Yi Qianxian didn't care about anything or anyone. But now, he held a young girl in the palm of his hand and placed her at the tip of his heart. Even if Situ Mayer didn't place Luo Qingtong in her eyes, she couldn't help but be jealous that she was able to obtain Yi Qianxian's favor. Her eyes were red and gloomy, but she still frowned and didn't say anything. Her thoughts were far deeper than anyone else's. She would never reveal the slightest sign of malice towards Luo Qingtong in front of Yi Qianxian. The man's violent and oppressive aura from just a moment ago still remained in her body, causing her internal injuries to be unable to heal. Situ didn't doubt that if she said anything bad about Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianxian might even raise his hand and behead her here and now. The more she thought about it, the more jealousy and hatred she felt in her heart. Chapter 2263. This identity token wasn't much of a treasure, but it could easily store information that couldn't be damaged. It contained a wisp of Yi Qianxian's divine sense. Unless it was someone stronger than him, no one would be able to destroy this token. Like this, even if the entire Star Alliance died, as long as this token remained, Yi Qianxian would be able to know who had attacked True Spill Continent. This would completely put an end to the thoughts of those from Sky Capital who wanted to attack True Spill Continent. As Situ Mayor saw this, she finally couldn't bear it any longer. Your Highness. She looked at the token that Yi Qianxian had thrown out. That was the token of Sky Capital's young emperor. It represented Yi Qianxian's status. How many people yearned for it but couldn't get it? Yi Qianxian had so easily thrown it to someone from the Star Alliance. Not only that, but they had also offended his people. And everything he did was for Luo Qingtong. Thinking of this, Situ Mayor fiercely clenched her teeth. Your Highness is being too kind. She tried to hide the coldness and jealousy in her eyes. She swept her gaze around and saw Mo Zhuling looking at Yi Qianxian with a dazed expression. As a woman, she was well aware of the other party's gaze. Another person who coveted His Highness. These ant-like people, how could they overestimate themselves? This woman, the woman who had seized His Highness' favor, was also her. Situ Mayor's eyes were cold. She lifted her hand and sucked Mo Zhuling into her palm. As the saying goes, you can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment. You dare to be disrespectful to His Highness without any punishment? Where is the dignity of His Highness in Sky Capital? As Situ Mayor spoke, she lifted her hand and blasted a force into Mo Zhuling's body. In an instant, Mo Zhuling screamed. All the bones and flesh in her body were instantly smashed to smithereens by Situ Mayor's power, leaving only the outer layer of skin intact. Unfortunately, Situ Mayor's power was protecting her heart, preventing her from dying no matter what. In the blink of an eye, Mo Zhuling had turned into a pile of minced meat in Situ Mayor's hands. Looking at her disgusting appearance, Situ Mayor sneered disdainfully in her heart. Such an ant-like person dared to covet His Highness? It was a pity that the person in His Highness's heart could not make a move. Otherwise, she would definitely let him know what it meant to be unable to live and unable to die. But it didn't matter. There would always be a chance in the future. Without His Highness, what was the other party? Situ Mayor chuckled, but her eyes were cold. She threw Mo Zhuling in front of the Star Alliance members, then half knelt on the ground and begged Yi Qianxian, Your Highness, please return to the palace. Your Highness, please return to the palace. The heavenly Xian guards replied in unison. Their voices shook the starry sky and their aura soared to the heavens. Yi Qianxian glanced at her coldly but did not say anything. He had never intended to let Mo Zhuling off. Since the other party had already made a move, then so be it. Let's go. Yi Qianxian, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others rushed into the huge array formation. In the next second, the huge array formation reversed. In an instant, everyone disappeared in front of everyone. Only the remaining monstrous aura, as well as the starry sky region that was constantly surging and breaking into pieces, told everyone in the Star Alliance that this was not a dream. Chapter 2264. Hurry. Looking at the token in his hand that was engraved with the words Sky Capital and Dark, the Star Alliance's peak powerhouse's voice trembled as he shouted, Immediately send out orders. From now on, in every star field where the Star Alliance is located, the people of True Spill Continent are not to be provoked. If anyone dares to touch a single hair of theirs, I will chop them up and feed them to the dogs. Also, send more people to True Spill Continent. All of them must be peak purple venerable powerhouses. He stamped his feet. Disguise. Disguise them all. Don't let anyone know. Also, no one is allowed to speak of today's matters. His voice was sharp and shrill. As for the peak powerhouses of the Star Alliance, they didn't say anything. All of them looked as if they were about to face a great enemy as they began to make preparations. Yi Qianxian had said that if anything happened to True Spill Continent, then they, along with the entire Star Alliance, would all be punished with the same crime as those who had attacked. The peak powerhouses of the Star Alliance couldn't care about the life or death of others, but they couldn't ignore their own life or death. True Spill Continent could not suffer even the slightest mishap. As for Uncle Zhang and the other members of the Star Alliance, their faces were deathly pale. They looked at Mo Zhuling, who had been thrown in front of them like a pile of mud. Their hearts were filled with unspeakable fear and regret. This time they had really kicked an iron plate. Who would have thought that Yi Qianxian's background would be so great? His strength was actually so fierce. As the crowd stood there and watched the peak powerhouses of the Star Alliance disperse, they all understood. This time the skies of the Star Alliance were about to change. In the past, within the Star Alliance, the Alliance Master's strength reigned supreme. As for the other highest elders of the main hall, they all supported the Alliance Master. However, now that Mo Zhuling had caused such a ruckus, the Alliance Master's prestige was bound to plummet. In addition, with the token that Yi Qianxian had given them, although it might not be able to help the peak powerhouses of the Star Alliance, it wouldn't be able to help them deal with the Alliance Master. But with this token, the Alliance Master and the others wouldn't be able to deal with the peak powerhouses of the Star Alliance. Like this, these people would be able to stand on equal footing with the Alliance Master. The entire situation of the Star Alliance would change because of this. This time, eldest young Miss had really caused them and the Alliance Master to suffer. Uncle Zhang and the others' hearts were filled with regret. Especially Uncle Zhang. If he had a chance to start over Spill Continent. He could only feel regret in his heart, but there was nothing else he could do. The group of people picked up Mo Zhuling, who was lying on the ground like a pile of mud, and left. As for the people of True Spill Continent, they still didn't know what was going on. But with Yi Qianxian collecting the auras of the space fluctuations, Su Yu and the others knew that he would definitely find a way to find Luo Qingtong's whereabouts. And from the reactions of Yi Qianxian and Bei Qin, it could be seen that although Luo Qingtong had gone missing, she might not necessarily be in mortal danger. Everyone's hearts settled down. Su Yu and the others made a firm resolution in their hearts. They would work hard to cultivate their strength so that they could rush out of the Stargate in the future and go to the outer realms to find Luo Qingtong. Master, wait for us. Chapter 2265. The expressions of Su Xiaoxiao and the others were also very cold. The group walked in front of the Grand Supreme Dean without a word and said in a deep voice, "Grand Supreme Dean, we want to cultivate in the Heavenly Yuan sect. We will provide all the cultivation resources ourselves. We only need the people of the Heavenly Yuan sect to provide the mystic realm and cultivation grounds." In the hidden world, the beast-taming King Valley was destroyed and the Star Alliance Hall no longer existed. Now, the strongest was the Heavenly Yuan sect. Of course, although the other sects were not bad, they were still lacking compared to the Heavenly Yuan sect. Su Xiaoxiao and the others wanted to improve their strength, so they naturally chose the strongest Heavenly Yuan sect. And they were not afraid that the people of the Heavenly Yuan sect would harm them. This was because although Luo Qingtong was not here, all the people of the hidden world, except for the Heavenly Yuan sect, had already sworn loyalty to Luo Qingtong and would be her slaves for the rest of their lives. They completely obeyed the orders of Su Yu and the others. It could be said that even if Luo Qingtong was not here, the entire hidden world was still in the hands of Su Yu and the others. Even if the people of the Heavenly Yuan sect had any ideas, they would not be able to stir up any waves. Moreover, these days of interaction were enough for them to see the nature of the people of the Heavenly Yuan sect. They were definitely not people who would go back on their words. They still understood the character of the Grand Supreme Dean. Thinking of this, Su Xiaoxiao and the others could not help but tear up. That was their boss. Even if she was not here, she would still arrange their future very well. In this life, they were so lucky to be able to follow by Luo Qingtong's side. Boss, just you wait. We will definitely cultivate well and then look for you. Little Tyrant Yuan and the others said silently in their hearts. No matter how difficult the future was, no matter what they faced, no matter if they were going to face a storm of blades or a rain of swords, they would not give up. Boss, wait for us. We will definitely find you. Everyone clasped the purified immortal jade bones in their hands tightly. Their hearts were filled with determination. The Grand Supreme Dean looked at them and nodded solemnly. Don't worry. Your problem will be the Heavenly Yuan sect's problem in the future. Moreover, the Sky Yuan sect's intention to follow Luo Qingtong will not change. Master, don't you agree? The Grand Supreme Dean looked at the Heaven Yuan sect master and the others. That's right. The Heavenly Yuan sect master and the others said without hesitation. Everything I've said before is still valid. In the future, the Heavenly Yuan sect will be under Luo Qingtong. In the entire hidden world, Luo Qingtong reigns supreme. There will be no change in this matter. In addition, if you and the people around you want to cultivate in the Heavenly Yuan sect, you are always welcome. Su Xiaoxiao and the others had gone through life and death with Luo Qingtong, so they were very close to each other. Naturally, the Heaven Branch sect master and the others would not be stingy with their own cultivation grounds. Although Luo Qingtong wasn't here, the hidden world was still her world. A young girl's planning was hard to find in the world. Everyone from the Heavenly Yuan sect gasped in amazement. If it weren't for the fact that Luo Qingtong's departure was so sudden, even Yi Qianxian would not have been able to find any clues. They would have thought that Luo Qingtong had arranged it herself. In reality, Luo Qingtong was completely unaware of all this. Buzz. Chapter 2266. What's going on? Luo Qingtong furrowed her brows and looked at her surroundings. She had already woken up and opened her eyes when the huge whirlpool engulfed her. However, it was too late and she was sucked into the whirlpool. Luo Qingtong looked at her surroundings and guessed that she was sucked into a place similar to a teleportation space. Luo Qingtong furrowed her brows. She had been teleporting for a long time, but she still hadn't arrived. This was definitely not an ordinary teleportation array. Luo Qingtong vaguely sensed a trace of inscription power from the aura of this array. Just like Yi Qianxian, Luo Qingtong's first thought was that it had something to do with the Immortal Slayer Palace. Could it be that the enemies who massacred the Immortal Slayer Palace and forced Tian Mingzi to flee with the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace had come looking for her? Luo Qingtong could only think of one reason. Although she didn't know how the other party knew of her existence and how she was sucked into this teleportation space, Luo Qingtong was very shocked. She had already obtained the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace. The 9-story exquisite pagoda and the life and death sword had already recognized her as their master. Adding Little Pig, Luo Qingtong's enmity with the enemies of the Immortal Slayer Palace was huge. It was impossible to reconcile. If the other party wanted to obtain the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace, they had to kill her. Then they had to use her blood to break the contract between her, the 9-story exquisite pagoda, the life and death sword, and Little Pig. This was absolutely impossible. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. Her life was only in her hands. Whoever wanted to kill her, she would kill them first. However, the power in her body had completely disappeared. It was not the time to fight with the other party. As Luo Qingtong thought about it, her brows furrowed. At this moment, splat. In her mind, Little Pig rushed out of the 9-story exquisite pagoda. What happened? It looked at the space where Luo Qingtong was at the moment. The space around her was rapidly flowing away. Suddenly, its two small green bean eyes widened. It had just fainted due to exhaustion. How could Luo Qingtong appear in such a place? It's a teleportation array. It stared at the surroundings and asked Luo Qingtong, "Why are you here?" Wasn't she arguing with that huge skeleton? How did he appear here in the blink of an eye? Could it be that the land of the fallen immortals was hiding some kind of secret? Little Pig had no idea what happened after that. Naturally, he didn't know that Luo Qingtong had already killed that skeleton. It was a complete accident that it appeared here. I don't know. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. I can feel the power of inscriptions. I wonder if it has something to do with the enemies of the Immortal Slayer Palace. I was suddenly sucked here. Luo Qingtong briefly explained her situation to Little Pig. In an instant, Little Pig jumped up and down in excitement. Are you serious? You don't have any strength left. Oh, this is bad. Little Pig jumped up and down like an ant on a hot pan. If Luo Qingtong had strength, it wouldn't be so panicked. This woman had always had strange abilities and extraordinary means. She could use 10% of her strength as 10% of her strength. As long as she had strength, Little Pig believed that she could find a way to escape. However, if she didn't have strength, she would be doomed. Chapter 2267. Little Pig was anxious as he thought about it. Luo Qingtong's expression was still calm. She wasn't worried about whether she could escape or not. As long as the enemies of the Immortal Slayer Palace wanted to get something from the Immortal Slayer Palace, she had a way to escape from them. Luo Qingtong had been hunted down countless times in her previous life. This was not a big deal for her. The only thing that Luo Qingtong was worried about was her face. She raised her hand and touched her face. Once this face fell into the eyes of the other party, even if she was lucky enough to escape this time, her identity would not be able to be hidden. At that time, the enemies could come to the true Spill continent to find her. In this way, unless she didn't go back for the rest of her life, they would find her sooner or later. Moreover, what about Grandpa and the others? Luo Qingtong frowned as she thought of this. It wasn't that she didn't think of disguising herself, but the transmission space was extremely unstable. It wasn't convenient to disguise herself here. More importantly, the enemies of the Immortal Slayer Palace were very powerful. Her disguise technique could deceive ordinary people, but it might not work if she wanted to deceive them. Luo Qingtong frowned even harder as she thought of this. At this moment, chirp chirp chirp. In Luo Qingtong's sleeve, there was a faint and weak cry. It was the small sector beast that had almost been sucked dry. It had come back to its senses and was struggling in her sleeve trying to get out. Luo Qingtong listened to its voice, and her eyes suddenly lit up. She took the little guy out. Chirp chirp chirp. The little guy was twisting in her hand as if it was protesting something. It was a sector beast. It wanted a hug. Did you know that it wanted a hug? However, Luo Qingtong didn't understand what it was saying at all. She ignored it and said to Little Pig, "Humph, ask it if it has any power left. The kind that can turn me into my previous life's appearance?" Luo Qingtong remembered that when she had flashed through the small sector beast space of consciousness, she had seen an image of herself from her previous life. There was a huge birthmark on her face that covered more than half of her face. He looked as ferocious as an evil spirit. Such an image was enough to cover her face and prevent the enemies of the Immortal Slayer Palace from recognizing her identity. At that time, she would find a way to escape and return to True Spill Continent. The world was so big, where could the other party find him? He didn't believe that the other party would be able to use such a method of crossing star fields again and again. What's more, he wouldn't give them the chance to do so. At that time, she would naturally set up layers of protection around herself. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she stared at the little ball in her hand with a burning gaze. Chirp. The little dumpling felt goosebumps all over its body from being stared at by her, and the little ahog on top of its head instantly stood up. It stared at Luo Qingtong, wondering why she was looking at it like that. Did she think that it was useless because it could only help her recall the power of her previous life once? Chirp chirp chirp. It was wronged. The power of the previous life that she had chosen was too strong. It was completely beyond its ability, okay? Woo woo woo, it was still a baby. How could she treat it like this? Chapter 2268. While the two little guys were humming and chirping, Luo Qingtong felt the space around them fluctuating more and more violently. It was obvious that the teleportation formation was about to reach its destination. How is it? Luo Qingtong said in a deep voice when she saw Little Pig turning to look at her. It says it can, Little Pig's voice sounded. Before it could finish, Luo Qingtong gave the final word. Okay, let it transform. Little Furball, transform me into someone from my previous life, the one with the birthmark on my face. Luo Qingtong gave Little Furball a brief instruction. She knew that Little Pig could understand her words. The reason why she let Little Pig talk to it was because Luo Qingtong couldn't understand it. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong would be able to communicate with it directly without Little Pig. Chirp chirp. Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, and Little Furball immediately nodded. At this time, the space around them fluctuated more violently. It was as if Luo Qingtong was going to be ejected in the next second. Quick! Luo Qingtong said to Little Furball. Once she was ejected, it would be too late even if she could transform. Once her face was exposed, her identity would also be exposed. Chirp chirp. Hearing her voice, Little Furball suddenly jumped up. Then a force from its body landed on Luo Qingtong's body. With a boom, the space around them fluctuated more violently when its force landed on Luo Qingtong's body. In the next second, Luo Qingtong was ejected. Hey, wait a minute, I haven't finished speaking. While Luo Qingtong and Little Furball were talking, Little Pig was about to speak. However, it was too late. The space around them fluctuated violently. With a boom, both Little Pig and Luo Qingtong were ejected. Ow ow ow, Master. Little Pig's round and chubby body tumbled in the air. Just as it was about to be flung to God knows where, Luo Qingtong reached out her hand and firmly caught it. Shwa. Luo Qingtong's body somersaulted in midair and then stabilized. The surroundings had already changed. Clearly, she had already left the teleportation space. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly flashed. She lowered her head, and under the cover of her spinning body, she raised her hand to wipe her face. Very good. Half of it was smooth while the other half was rough. The smooth areas were delicate and tender, while the rough areas were hard to touch. One could even vaguely feel the rough surface of the skin. Clearly, Xiao Tuanzi's power had been successfully unleashed. Luo Qingtong's current appearance was her appearance from her previous life. That rough area should be where the birthmark was. After confirming that her appearance had changed greatly, and that her original appearance should be unrecognizable, Luo Qingtong's heart calmed down. She casually touched her sleeve and found that little fur ball had fainted after unleashing its power. She immediately covered her sleeve and then raised her head to look at the surroundings. This place is... She put on an ignorant expression and pretended that she didn't know anything. She wanted to think of a way to get away with it. Chapter 2269. Then a ghost-like wailing sound rang out. "Ah! Good disciple, I finally found you. Disciple, save me." As this voice rang out, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed and her body, which was about to dodge, froze. This voice, this tone of voice, Song Cheng? Luo Qingtong looked at the figure flying towards her. Who else could it be but Song Cheng, the teacher of the Empire of Qin branch in the Tianyu Empire? It was actually him who summoned her here? Damn. Luo Qingtong's heart was full of curses. She was scared to death. She had been thinking for a long time in the transmission space about how to escape from the evil hands of the Immortal Slayer Palace's enemy, but it turned out to be a false alarm. Simply. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. She didn't expect it to be Song Cheng. He had left a letter for her, saying that he had something to do and had left. But there was no news from him. Who would have thought that he would suddenly appear at this time? And he even used such a method to summon her here. It would be strange if she thought it was him. Damn. Luo Qingtong's mood was up and down. It was simply too exciting. When Song Cheng rushed in front of Luo Qingtong, he saw her face covered by a birthmark. He couldn't see her original face at all. In an instant he flashed to the other side. You. Who are you? Song Cheng stared at the girl in front of him who had no strength or aura and had a large birthmark on her face. The shock in his heart was simply indescribable. Why are you here? He raised his hand and pointed at Luo Qingtong. He was flustered and exasperated. Where is my good disciple? He clearly used something with Luo Qingtong's aura to summon her here. Why wasn't it Luo Qingtong who appeared here? Who was this girl? Song Cheng did not recognize that the girl in front of him was Luo Qingtong. After all, the birthmark on Luo Qingtong's face couldn't be any more real. He would never have thought that this unfamiliar girl with a large birthmark in front of him was Luo Qingtong. When the latter heard his words, he felt a wave of annoyance in his heart. Obedient disciple, your sister. I've never seen a master who cheats his disciple like you. She was almost scared to death just now. However, the situation was still unclear. Luo Qingtong was not ready to acknowledge Song Cheng. She glanced around and found that there was a group of people around. At this moment, seeing that Luo Qingtong had been summoned by Song Cheng and that the latter had obviously found the wrong person, a tall and skinny middle-aged man in the crowd laughed. Ah. Song City, the heavens really don't bless your heavenly wind inscription city. I gave you such a good opportunity to gather the strength that your heavenly wind inscription city had accumulated for so many years to activate the interstellar domain teleportation array and summon someone with the power of inscription patterns. You actually summoned the wrong person. Chapter 2270. Who doesn't know that Song Cheng's inscription technique is terrible to the extreme? He can't even enter the entry level. His existence is the biggest joke in the entire Heavenly Wind Inscription City. For his disciple to be able to win against them in inscription technique is even more of a joke than the heavens. This inscription man-seeking array has never made a mistake, let alone gathering all the energy stored in Heavenly Wind Inscription City. From what I see, he's deliberately stalling for time. He wants to borrow the 3 days of activation of the array to delay the deadline for Heavenly Wind Inscription City to hand over the inscription tower. However, the man looked at Song Cheng and Luo Qingtong and laughed in disdain. Trash will always be trash, sooner or later they'll show their true colors. Song Cheng, you can't delay any longer, so you purposely said that you summoned the wrong person, right? What? You want to do it again? Unfortunately, even if you want to play a joke for us to see, the people of Lingyu Inscription City won't bother to continue tormenting you. Just wait for the inscription tower to change owners tomorrow. The man said as he looked at the tall and thin man beside him and said, City Lord, don't you agree? The City Lord of Lingyu Inscription City immediately nodded and said, That's right. Song Cheng, you're not afraid of losing face and want to play a monkey trick for us? but the people of Lengyu Inscription City aren't willing to see it. The inscription tower has stayed in your Heavenly Wind Inscription City for long enough. If it wasn't for the bet you made with us to learn the inscription technique within 12 years, we would have let the inscription tower stay in your Heavenly Wind Inscription City for another 3 years. The inscription tower would have long been in our Lengyu Inscription City. Now, no matter how many impossible conditions and requests you make, we will definitely not agree to it. Speaking until here, the city lord of Lengyu Inscription City had a gloomy expression. It was because they were certain that Song Cheng, who had 0 inscription talent, would not be able to learn the inscription technique, so they made a bet with him with the inscription tower. In the end, Song Cheng, this trash, actually learned the inscription technique within 12 years. Although he was trash, he was still a proper inscription master. Therefore, they had no choice but to place the inscription tower in Heavenly Wind Inscription City for another 3 years. During these 3 years, they couldn't challenge Skywind Inscription City, nor could they take the inscription tower away. Because of this, he almost lost his position as the city lord. At this moment, when they heard that Song Cheng had decided to call his disciple over to help, everyone from Lengyu Inscription City came over to watch the show. They wanted to see what kind of trick Song Cheng could play and what kind of deity he could summon. In the end, he called out such an ugly girl. What's more, he's a trash with trash strength. The group of people from Lengyu City felt disdain in their hearts. They were certain that this was another trap set by Song Cheng. He wanted them to wait for him to summon them again. What kind of joke was this? Did he think they were fools? This time, the interstellar domain teleportation array had already used up all the power that Heavenly Wind Inscription City had accumulated over the years. If he wanted to activate the interstellar domain teleportation array again and use the inscription technique to search for someone, he had no idea how long he would have to wait. Unless there was something wrong with their brains, they wouldn't let him do it again. Chapter 2271. Behind him, Song Cheng hurriedly shouted, "Hey, wait! City Lord Jiang, please wait. I really summoned the wrong person. Give me another chance. Just one chance." However, when the people of Lengyu City heard his words, they were even more certain that he was deliberately stalling for time. They simply ignored him. In an instant, the crowd had all left. As for the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City, they looked at Song Cheng and sighed. "Forget it, Cheng, you've already tried your best." An old man who was supported by others walked out at this time. He coughed and said to Song Cheng, "Master." Seeing the old man walk out from the crowd, Song Cheng's eyes turned red. This old man was none other than his master, the city lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. The old man believed in education without discrimination. As long as someone wanted to learn inscription techniques, he would teach them regardless of their talent. Song Cheng had been his disciple for dozens of years, but he had never learned inscription techniques. Others mocked him and told the old man to stop teaching him and kick him out to avoid tarnishing the old man's reputation. But the old man had never done that. The old man treated him like a teacher and a father. That was why when Heavenly Wind Inscription City was in danger, Song Cheng stood up without hesitation and used 12 years as a bet, desperately wanting to learn inscription techniques. He heard that returning to his true self was the easiest way to gain enlightenment. That was why he sealed his strength and returned to his hometown, the True Spill continent. In the Jianghu Empire, where he was born, he became a small mentor, hoping that he could gain enlightenment and comprehend inscription techniques. However, no matter how hard he tried, he could not succeed. Just when he was disheartened and prepared to stay for another year and return to Inscription City to live and die with Heavenly Wind, he met that weirdo Luo Qingtong. The young girl said that she wanted to learn inscription techniques from him, but Song Cheng did not take it seriously. However, who would have thought that such a young girl would reveal such a peerless talent in inscription techniques? Song Cheng was restricted by the bet, so he could not tell Luo Qingtong his identity. Even the inscription technique that was taught to him was something that he had accidentally obtained. However, who would have thought that under such circumstances, Luo Qingtong would be able to deduce many things from one instance. Not only did she learn the inscription technique, she even taught him. If this matter was spread out, it would probably cause others to roar with laughter. No one would believe it at all. In this world, how could a student teach a teacher? However, Luo Qingtong did it. Hence, Song Cheng had no choice but to think of Luo Qingtong for the crisis in Skywind Inscription City. Because he was afraid that Luo Qingtong's strength was not enough, traveling through the star field would damage her body. He had purposely convinced his master and the people of Sky Wind Inscription City to allow him to use the power that Sky Wind Inscription City had stored for so many years to summon Luo Qingtong. Who would have thought that he would summon the wrong person? Thinking of this, Song Qing felt that he was extremely useless. Thinking about the terrifying situation his master and Tianfeng Inscription City would face once the people of Lengyu Inscription City succeeded, Song Qing could not help but tear up. Master. He looked at the old man and choked with sobs. Chapter 2272. Oh, Uncle, why don't you solve the problem on my side first? Luo Qingtong looked at the red-eyed Song Qing and sighed in her heart. She was originally a bit angry that Song Qing had suddenly summoned her here. After all, Su Yu and Su Xiaoxiao still didn't know anything about the true Spill continent. There was also Yi Qianxian. Thinking of her sudden disappearance, Luo Qingtong frowned. She didn't know how worried and anxious that man would be. But as she saw Song Cheng's red-eyed appearance, she couldn't find the words to blame him. She was well aware of Song Cheng's personality. If it wasn't for the fact that he had no other choice, he wouldn't have used such a method to summon her here. Listening to the words of those people, this place seemed to be called Heavenly Wind Inscription City. And those people were from Cold Jade Inscription City. Were they fighting over something called the Inscription Tower? Was it because of this that Song Cheng had specially used an interstellar transmission array to summon her from the true Spill continent? Luo Qingtong wasn't someone who didn't know what was good for her. From the words of the people around her, she could feel that this array formation wasn't easy to use. She feared that Song Cheng's purpose in using this array formation, besides quickly summoning her from the true Spill continent, was to protect her. After all, when Song Cheng left the true Spill continent, she was only a martial king. No matter how much he thought about it, he never imagined that her strength would increase so quickly over the years. She was already a Saint Venerable. In such a situation, if he wanted to bring her to the outer realms without damaging her body and foundation, he could only use a special method. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she couldn't be angry at Song Cheng for suddenly summoning her here. And as her voice sounded out, Song Cheng also remembered that there was a little girl here that he had mistakenly summoned. He had clearly summoned Luo Qingtong, but the result was a little girl that he didn't know at all. Song Cheng's heart felt stifled. He couldn't figure out where the problem came from. Maybe it was just like what the people of Lengyu City said, the heavens didn't bless their heavenly wind inscription city. The old man beside him also coughed and said to him, "That's right, Chenger. You must make sure this young lady is well taken care of. She was summoned here by mistake. She's innocent. As for the matter of heavenly wind inscription city, you don't have to worry about it. Everyone has their own fate. Maybe our heavenly wind inscription city's calamity has arrived." Yes. Song Ching looked at him and nodded. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he didn't say anything. In any case, if he really couldn't do it in the end, he would just live and die with heavenly wind inscription city. Thinking of this, he immediately said to Luo Qingtong, "Come, little girl, come with me." No matter what, he was the one who summoned her, so he had to settle her down. Otherwise he wouldn't feel at ease. However, if she wanted him to send her back to the true Spill continent, that was impossible. Firstly, Song Ching didn't have that kind of ability. Secondly, the power of Heavenly Wind Inscription City had been exhausted. It was impossible to restart the array formation again. As Song Ching thought of this, he felt very guilty. He brought Luo Qingtong to his place of residence. Chapter 2273. Don't call me teacher. Although I accidentally summoned you out, I'll make sure you settle down properly. Other than that, there's nothing else. Song Ching said without turning his head. Although his demonic disciple didn't respect him and was always unwilling to acknowledge him as her teacher, she still had to urge him. However, Song Ching had already decided that Luo Qingtong was his only disciple. Furthermore, with his inscription skills, what kind of disciple could he teach? It was enough to have his precious disciple. Song Ching was very suspicious that he had summoned the wrong person this time. Perhaps it was Luo Qingtong's masterpiece. That girl had always been cautious and had many tricks up her sleeve. Perhaps she had tampered with the inscription tool and changed the aura inside. That was why his inscription manhunting array had gone wrong. When he thought of this, Song Ching couldn't help but feel proud. That was his disciple. She was peerless and unique in the world. Although she was too smart and he would be cheated for no reason. However, he was happy to do so. So what if he was happy to pamper his disciple? He didn't want anyone else, no matter how many came. No. He waved his hand as he spoke. When his voice sounded, Luo Qingtong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Master, it's me." Luo Qingtong rolled her eyes. She knew that he had misunderstood and thought that she wanted to acknowledge him as her master. "I'm Qingtong." When Luo Qingtong spoke, Song Cheng suddenly stopped in his tracks. "Qingtong?" Song Cheng suddenly turned around and looked at Luo Qingtong as if he had seen a ghost. No matter how he looked at her, the person in front of him didn't look like Luo Qingtong. His precious disciple was born beautiful and beautiful. How could she be so ugly? She even had such a huge birthmark on her face. "Don't lie to me." Song Cheng looked at Luo Qingtong with a serious expression. His gaze towards the young girl was extremely cold. Although he had summoned the wrong person, he was willing to compensate her. However, this wasn't a reason for her to lie to him. She wanted to pretend to be his disciple and reap benefits? She had the wrong idea. Luo Qingtong looked at him speechlessly. "Do you want me to tell you about how you couldn't learn the inscription technique no matter how hard you tried? You treat a 10 square meter space inscription pattern array as a treasure you." Before Luo Qingtong could finish her words, Song Cheng pounced on her and covered her mouth. "Wait." Song Cheng looked at the ugly girl in front of him and asked, "Where did we first meet?" "In the dormitory of Tianyu Academy." "Right?" Luo Qingtong looked at him and said with a smile, "Someone said that he would accept a disciple on behalf of a friend, but in the end, he didn't mention it at all. Since you don't recognize me as your disciple, why don't you introduce me to your old friend? I don't mind changing my master." "I mind." Song Cheng was now completely convinced that Luo Qingtong was his disciple. He looked at the young girl in front of him, feeling both puzzled and excited. "You stinky girl. It's really you? How did you become like this? Also, why didn't you recognize me when you just came out? You made me so anxious." Song Cheng's voice was trembling. His heart was on a roller coaster ride. It was simply too exciting. This stinky girl played him like this. Chapter 2274. You still have the nerve to say that? Luo Qingtong rolled her eyes at him. "Why did you summon me here so casually? Who knows what's going on?" "I thought it was my enemy," Luo Qingtong said with narrowed eyes. She had the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace, and she didn't know what was going on here. Naturally, she had to be careful. After all, this was the Outer Realm and not a small place like the True Spill Continent. What if she accidentally exposed herself and attracted the enemies of the Immortal Slayer Palace? Not to mention, this was a place related to inscription patterns. The Immortal Slayer Palace used to be the leader of inscription patterns, the #1 sect. Maybe the forces here were related to the former enemies of the Immortal Slayer Palace. How could Luo Qingtong be careless? Song Cheng thought about it. This time he summoned Luo Qingtong here, and it was indeed too sudden. No wonder this girl hid it from him and didn't want to acknowledge him. Seeing Luo Qingtong's face change, Song Cheng's lips twitched. He felt a little guilty in his heart. At that time he only thought of the benefits of the interstellar transmission array, but he didn't expect that Luo Qingtong didn't know anything and was teleported here. It was already good enough that she wasn't scared to death. Cough. As he thought about it, he suddenly felt that he was not in the right. This master didn't consider it so clearly. But I really didn't mean it. My dear disciple. You have to believe me. Song Cheng looked pitiful. He was afraid that Luo Qingtong would be unhappy and really replace him as her master. At that time, where could he find such a good disciple? No way. He begged for this disciple shamelessly, and he didn't want her even if he died. Okay, I know. Luo Qingtong looked at him with a burst of annoyance. If not for this, she would have ignored Song Cheng long ago. Why would she acknowledge him? Who was sincere and who was insincere, who had the intention and who didn't, she couldn't tell. That's good, that's good. Song Cheng patted his chest and rejoiced. But very quickly, he thought of the reason why he called Luo Qingtong over, and immediately said with a sad face, "My precious disciple, you have to help me this time. Your master, I was bullied so badly." Luo Qingtong's lips twitched as she looked at him. He had never seen someone who could ask his disciple to help him so smoothly. She had to hand it to this master of hers. "Let's go back to your place first," Luo Qingtong said. She also wanted to understand where she was and how to return to True Spill Continent. She had given up on the interstellar domain teleportation array. The words of those people were very clear. Using the teleportation array had almost exhausted all of the power of the Heavenly Wind Inscription City. It was almost impossible to send her back again. Moreover, if the reverse teleportation array was so simple, Song Qing would not have only summoned him here and not gone over himself. With that thought in mind, Luo Qingtong and Song Qing immediately returned to his place. Soon she learned the basic situation of this place from the other party. The place she was at was indeed Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Inscription City was specially built by the Inscription Masters Association as a place for inscription masters to communicate and live. It was independent of the major star fields and was not threatened by any powerhouses. Every star field of 6 stars and above had an inscription city. Chapter 2275. As Luo Qingtong heard this, she looked at Song Qing with a smile that wasn't a smile and said, "So Master is from the Heavenly Wind region. Sorry for the disrespect." She used to think that Song Qing was someone from the True Spill continent who was lucky enough to discover the inscription pattern technique. Although she found it strange that his analysis of the inscription pattern technique was so simple, she thought that it was because Song Qing accidentally came into contact with the inscription pattern technique. He didn't understand the theory behind it, so he studied it repeatedly. That was why he had such an understanding. In the end, he was someone from the Heavenly Wind Inscription City. How could he not know what the inscription pattern technique was when he was from the inscription pattern city? He might even have memorized the low-level entry-level techniques by heart. That was why he was able to analyze those theories so thoroughly with a body that had zero talent. Damn it. Luo Qingtong put on a fake smile, but Song Qing felt a chill run down his spine. Without thinking, he pounced on Luo Qingtong and howled, "Disciple! Master, I was forced to do this. At that time, I made a bet with the people of Cold Jade Inscription City. 12 years. That is, if I could learn the inscription pattern technique, then they would not be able to challenge Heavenly Wind Inscription City and take away the inscription pattern tower. At that time, the content of the bet was that no inscription master was allowed to help me. If I went out to seek a breakthrough, I could not reveal my identity to the outside world. I could not reveal the matter of Heavenly Wind Inscription City and Cold Jade Inscription City to seek help from others. That's why Master hid it from you and did not tell you my identity. Even my cultivation, because it was related to my identity as a foreigner, that's why the seal could not be lifted." Song Qing was just short of clinging onto Luo Qingtong and bawling his eyes out. Seeing him like this, Luo Qingtong tugged at the corner of her lips. "Alright, I was just casually saying it." Luo Qingtong also admired this master of hers. He didn't have any integrity at all. What happened to the dignity of a master? However, ever since the other party shamelessly insisted on being her master, he had lost all sense of shame. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched even more as she thought about it. "That's enough." Seeing that Song Qing was about to continue howling, Luo Qingtong held her forehead and hurriedly stopped him. She said, "Hurry and sit down. Master, I still have something to ask you." As soon as Luo Qingtong's words came out, Song Qing immediately sat upright and still, looking like a filial master. He asked Luo Qingtong, "Disciple, if you have something to ask, feel free to ask. Master, I will definitely tell you everything I know." Luo Qingtong's lips twitched, then she asked him, "Since you've successfully learned the inscription technique, logically speaking, they shouldn't be able to challenge Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Why are they here now? And that inscription tower, what exactly is it?" The moment Luo Qingtong's words left her mouth, Song Qing's serious expression instantly collapsed. "Don't mention it." His face was gloomy as he said angrily, "Those bastards from Cold Jade Inscription City, we agreed that if I successfully learned the inscription technique, they wouldn't be able to challenge Heavenly Wind Inscription City and take away the inscription tower." Chapter 2276. Saying this is already giving us a lot of face. "And these 3 years were exchanged by my master, the City Lord of Sky Wind Inscription City, using his own inscription master skills." As Song Qing spoke, there was a trace of sadness in his eyes. He looked at Luo Qingtong and his lips twitched. Then he felt very dejected in his heart. He said in a low voice, "Qingtong, am I very useless? You are my disciple and I was the one who shamelessly begged you. I know, with my inscription talent, let alone being your master, I might not even be qualified to be your disciple. I'm really sorry for suddenly calling you here. But," as Song Qing spoke, he sighed heavily and said, "I really have no other way. Master's kindness to me is as heavy as a mountain. In Skywind Inscription City I am the most disappointing one. No matter how hard I try, I can't learn the inscription technique that Master taught me. I'm completely different from you. You can infer many things from one example. However, Master has never turned his back on me. As Song Cheng spoke, he bitterly smiled. He looked at Luo Qingtong and said, Qingtong, I know that rather than saying that I brought you in, it's better to say that you comprehended it on your own. Your talent is peerless and rare. In Sky Wind Inscription City, I don't know how many inscription geniuses I've heard of. I've even heard of some of the top geniuses of the Central Union, but none of them can compare to you. No one can be like you, in an environment like the True Spill continent, and still be able to comprehend it on your own and cultivate to a high-level inscription master. Qingtong, your future is limitless. In the past, even if you didn't have my guidance with your talent and ability, you wouldn't have stopped at the entrance. You would have just entered a little later. As Song Cheng spoke, he sighed. He looked seriously at Luo Qingtong and said, but even so, I still want to shamelessly ask you for help. Qingtong, please help me. I can't watch the people of Cold Jade Inscription City take away the Inscription Tower. I don't want Sky Wind Inscription City to be forced to disband, and I don't want Master to lose the inscription technique that he was so proud of. From now on, he will never be able to inscribe inscriptions again. As Song Cheng spoke, his eyes were already filled with tears. At this moment, there was no trace of the mischievous smile on his face when he was joking around in front of Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong frowned and said, how do you know that I can help you? Your Heavenly Wind Inscription City has so many inscription masters, and I'm sure you don't lack high-level inscription masters as well. Furthermore, they are more powerful than me. If they can't do anything, how do you know I can? Luo Qingtong couldn't understand why Song Cheng would think that she could take back the inscription tower for Heavenly Wind Inscription City. To be able to cause their Heavenly Wind Inscription City to be at a loss, the other party's inscription skills must be extremely powerful, definitely above a high-level inscription master. How long had she been learning inscription techniques? Even if Luo Qingtong was confident that she could learn most of the inscriptions with her pair of blood eyes, Luo Qingtong was confident that she could learn most of the inscriptions. But to be able to learn and to be able to use were two different things. Otherwise, why would Luo Qingtong learn inscription techniques from the beginning? It was because in order to use inscription techniques, not only did one need to know how to inscribe inscription marks, one also needed to have the right amount of energy. Chapter 2277. Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes could only help her decipher the inscription mark as quickly as possible. She didn't need to spend too much time comprehending and analyzing it. As for the specific usage and power infusion, she still needed to explore and cultivate by herself. It was just like how she cultivated to increase her strength. Therefore, Luo Qingtong couldn't figure out how Song Cheng was so sure that she could help him. He didn't hesitate to use the inscription pattern searching technique to summon her from the True Spill continent. Of course, it's because of your super strong comprehension ability. Song Cheng looked at Luo Qingtong and said, you little girl, you probably don't know how terrifying your inscription talent is, right? I've never seen someone like you. When you were just a beginner in the inscription pattern technique, you were already able to guide me to a higher level of inscription pattern technique. Do you know what this means? It means that your comprehension ability has long surpassed your own inscription pattern level. It's only because your strength isn't enough that you can't use it. But do you know? Song Cheng looked at Luo Qingtong with a burning gaze. The challenge in the inscription tower is to create a seal through space. Song Cheng said to Luo Qingtong, you might not understand if I put it that way. I'll explain it to you like this. In other words, in the inscription tower, as long as you have enough comprehension of the inscription pattern technique, you don't need to inject your own strength. You can guide the power of the inscription tower into it and create a seal directly. In other words, the battle in the inscription tower doesn't rely on your own strength, but on your own comprehension. Even if you don't have any strength at the moment, as long as you have a deep enough understanding of the inscription pattern technique, you can use it in the inscription tower. As long as it's an inscription mark that you understand, you can use the power of the inscription tower to manifest and inscribe it. In that case, can you understand? Song Cheng's words resounded. In an instant, Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up. You're saying that as long as I can completely comprehend the inscription mark, I can use it in the inscription tower even if I don't have enough strength? So powerful? This inscription pagoda is a rare treasure. However, this was only limited to inscriptionists. Luo Qingtong finally understood why the people of Cold Jade Inscription City wanted this inscription tower so badly. Yes. Song Cheng nodded his head and said proudly, the The inscription tower was given to our inscription city by the Central Inscription Union. It was the result of the combined efforts of my master and all the ancestors of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Among all the inscription cities in the 6-star region, only our Sky Wind Inscription City has such an inscription tower. This inscription tower can increase the strength of us inscription masters, allowing us to practice the inscription technique without any restraint. We don't need to waste any of our strength. It's extremely beneficial for us to consolidate our strength and break through bottlenecks. Not only that, I heard that the inscription tower has battle inscription marks left behind by inscription masters of the Central Union. If we can obtain them, we can directly inject energy into them and activate them. Even if it's the lowest level of the inscription of battle, it's equivalent to the strength of a warrior at the 9th level of the human martial realm. It can't be underestimated. Chapter 2278. Human Martial Realm? This was a new name. Luo Qingtong felt that ever since she left the True Spill continent, she had realized just how vast the world was. It was far beyond her imagination. But this was also what she wanted. If it was like the 24th century on Earth, she wouldn't be able to find any opponents. Then what was the point? But now it was more interesting. As Luo Qingtong thought this, her lips curved up in a smile. It was indescribably evil. Human Martial Realm. As Song Cheng heard Luo Qingtong ask about this, he simply explained it to her. In any case, she was already in the outer realms. Sooner or later she would learn about this. And the earlier she knew, the better it would be for her future motivation. It's like this. The hidden world of your True Spill continent is the gateway to your True Spill continent. The powerhouses there are between the Saint Realm and Saint Realm. As Song Cheng spoke, he wanted to tell Luo Qingtong about the division of strength between the Saint Realm and above. However, before he could speak, Luo Qingtong nodded and said, I know. I'm already at the Saint Realm. As Song Cheng spoke, he was thirsty. After all, he had just spoken so much with Luo Qingtong. He was about to take a sip of tea. However, just as he poured himself a cup of tea and was about to continue speaking, he heard Luo Qingtong suddenly say this. He spat out all of the tea in his mouth. Luo Qingtong quickly dodged, but Song Cheng was the one who sprayed himself with tea. However, he didn't care about this. He pulled Luo Qingtong aside and said with wide eyes, "What did you say? What cultivation are you at?" Song Cheng thought that he had misheard. His own disciple should have said the Saint Realm. Although rising to the Saint Realm in such a short period of time was truly extraordinary, as he thought of Luo Qingtong's monstrous talent and ability, he was somewhat relieved. However, Luo Qingtong's next words completely shattered his guesses. Saint Realm. Luo Qingtong faintly said. Oh, that's not right. You should be at the 9th realm of the Saint Realm. As Luo Qingtong said this, Song Cheng was clutching his chest as if he had a heart attack. As he heard Luo Qingtong's words, he calmed down a little. It was impossible. In just a few years she had been in the True Spill continent, an inferior and barren continent. How could Luo Qingtong possibly be? Just as he thought of this, Luo Qingtong's last sentence rang out. Instantly he felt unwell. 9th realm. 9th realm. Song Cheng clutched his chest and stared at Luo Qingtong with widened eyes. Not only was she at the Saint Realm, but she was at the 9th realm? What kind of tonic did this girl take? In just a few short years, his strength had actually soared to such an extent. Song Cheng couldn't believe his own ears. He looked up and down at Luo Qingtong. Although he knew that if he questioned her then it would easily anger his precious disciple, he still couldn't help himself. No, I must say, my disciple, your strength doesn't seem right? Song Cheng looked at Luo Qingtong in a daze. It was only now that he realized that there weren't any fluctuations of strength coming from Luo Qingtong's body. At first, he thought that he had summoned the wrong person. Then he thought that it was because Luo Qingtong's strength was too low so he couldn't sense it. Chapter 2279. Not to mention that she was a 9th realm Saint Venerable, she was almost the same as an ordinary person, alright? What was going on? There was an accident. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. It was a long story so she did not want to tell Song Cheng too much. You will recover very soon. Luo Qingtong's strength was only temporarily gone. As long as she found a way to draw energy into her body again, she would be able to nurture a trace of strength in her body again. By then she would be able to use her cultivation technique to recover her strength. Hence, she did not feel too burdened when she said it. When Song Cheng heard her words, he was so stifled that he almost could not breathe. He was doubting her strength. His precious disciple dismissed him with a simple accident. But then again, what kind of accident could cause Luo Qingtong to lose all her strength? She looked like an ordinary person? If not, he would not have directly confirmed that he had summoned the wrong person. After all, Luo Qingtong's face was full of birthmarks and her weak body. It was hard for Song Cheng not to believe it. However, Song Cheng felt that Luo Qingtong would not lie to him, and she would not purposely say that her strength was high for the sake of grandiose achievements. So it was true? This girl had really advanced to the 9th realm, Saint Venerable? Was it because of this strength that the strength in her body disappeared? After all, it was reasonable for there to be some side effects after suddenly increasing her strength to such a high level. Song Cheng thought so and accepted Luo Qingtong's explanation. He sighed in his heart. His precious disciple was indeed different. If other disciples did not see each other for 3 years, they might think that the other person's cultivation had regressed or that their strength had not increased at all. His precious disciple, on the other hand, had directly jumped 30 feet high. The speed of her strength increase was like sitting on a rocket. It was simply frightening. Song Cheng said and immediately drank another mouthful of tea to calm himself down. Then he asked Luo Qingtong, "Are you really okay? Don't force yourself. Tell me directly if you need anything. I can still get many good things in this inscription city." Song Cheng patted his chest and said, "All right." Luo Qingtong looked at him and said with a smile, "When I need your help, I will definitely look for you, master." Luo Qingtong smiled sweetly. She didn't need anything, but in the true Spill continent, Suyu Old Man Luo and Su Xiaoxiao did. Since Song Cheng had spoken, Luo Qingtong naturally wouldn't be polite with him. Song Cheng still didn't know how serious the consequences of his careless words were. Now that he heard Luo Qingtong agree, his vanity as a master was greatly satisfied. He finally had a sense of being a master. He thought to himself happily. This precious disciple of his was really too powerful. Every time, it made him feel that this master of his was super useless. Now he could finally do something for her. Thinking so, Song Cheng immediately agreed. Then he continued to introduce the next division of strength to Luo Qingtong. "Since you are already a Saint Venerable, you should know the division of strength above the Saint Venerable realm, right?" Seeing Luo Qingtong nod, he immediately continued, "The human martial realm I want to talk about is the realm of strength after breaking through to the Saint Venerable realm. In the world there are 3 great martial realms: heaven, earth, and human. The human martial realm is the lowest, the earth martial realm is second, and the sky martial realm is the highest. Each realm is divided into 9 stages. And it is said that above the sky martial realm, there are even higher realms." Chapter 2280. As Song Cheng spoke, there was a tinge of regret in his tone. With his aptitude, it would be lucky if he could reach level 9 of the human martial realm. He didn't dare to hope for a higher realm. "So, little girl, do you know what the battle inscription that represents the peak of the human martial realm represents?" Battle inscriptions can only be carved by inscriptionists who have reached the human martial realm. The stronger the inscriptionist, the more powerful the battle inscription. At that time, the inscriptionist can look down on all enemies of the same level. However, there are too few people who can balance inscriptions and cultivation. And not everyone has the talent for inscriptions. Therefore, such inscriptionists are extremely rare. They are all in the Central Union. Song Cheng's words made Luo Qingtong's eyes light up. A battle inscription that was comparable to the peak of the human martial realm. Although it could only be used once, it was definitely a great weapon. Everything else aside, Luo Qingtong had a golden ticket to avoid death in the 6-star region and below. Since there was a chance for such a good thing, she must get it. Moreover, Luo Qingtong couldn't ignore Song Cheng. Although the other party had shamelessly begged her to be his disciple, his heart was sincere. Otherwise, with Luo Qingtong's temperament, if she didn't want to acknowledge him as her master, what was the use of Song Cheng's shamelessness? For Luo Qingtong, if she didn't want to do something, no one could force her. However, if she wanted to protect someone, she would go even if it was a mountain of swords and a sea of fire. "I'm going to the inscription tower." "Are they going to do it tomorrow?" Luo Qingtong looked at Song Cheng. "Yes. They have been delaying it for 3 years. I'm afraid they can't wait." When the people of Lingyu Inscription City were mentioned, Song Cheng was annoyed. Those people were too cunning. If they hadn't broken the bet, he wouldn't have used this method to call Luo Qingtong over. God knows how much he was afraid that Luo Qingtong would be angry and abandon him as her master. All right. Luo Qingtong nodded and said, then we will go and meet them tomorrow. But before that, master, I have something to tell you. Your disciple Luo Qingtong hasn't come yet. You summoned the wrong person. As Luo Qingtong said this, Song Cheng suddenly let out an ah sound. He didn't know what Luo Qingtong meant. However, before he could ask, Luo Qingtong had already pressed his hand down. Master, didn't I tell you before? I have enemies in the outer realms. This matter is too complicated, so I won't tell you more about it. Luo Qingtong had always been cautious. She had the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace, and now she was going to use her inscription technique to fight against the people of Lengyu Inscription City. Once he won, his reputation would immediately spread. Luo Qingtong didn't want to attract any unnecessary trouble. She would help Song Cheng, but not with the identity of Luo Qingtong, but with another identity. At that time, I will have to trouble Master to accept another disciple. Luo Qingtong said with a smile as she looked at Song Cheng. When the latter heard this, he immediately understood. He immediately laughed happily and said, okay. As long as it is my precious disciple, I will accept as many as you come. In any case, he would only accept his precious disciple. Song Cheng naturally wouldn't disagree. All right. Luo Qingtong looked at him and smiled. Then master, quickly prepare an identity for me. Chapter 2281. Sigh. Song Cheng hurriedly agreed and then hurriedly went out to prepare. He didn't dare to neglect what his precious disciple wanted to do. Furthermore, Luo Qingtong had already agreed to help him, which made Song Cheng even more ecstatic. Others might think that it was ridiculous for him to place his hopes on a disciple, but Song Cheng knew that with Luo Qingtong's peerless talent, if there was really someone who could help Tianfeng Inscription City turn the tide, it would only be her. If Luo Qingtong couldn't do it, then Tianfeng Inscription City wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. As he thought about it, he immediately went to prepare. And at this moment, in a luxurious courtyard, the group of people who had left Lengyu Inscription City earlier walked in. After the city lord of Lengyu Inscription City let the others return to their rooms to rest, he immediately brought a few of his trusted aides to a room. Master Qin, he said respectfully to an old man in the room with a flattering expression, we can take back the inscription tower tomorrow. Thank you, Master Qin, for helping our Lengyu Inscription City. Otherwise, our Lengyu Inscription City wouldn't have been able to take the inscription tower from Tianfeng Inscription City. As the city lord of Lengyu Inscription City said this, he was extremely proud in his heart. Their Lengyu Inscription City's strength had always been below Tianfeng Inscription City, especially himself. He was absolutely no match for the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City. The other party's strength was tyrannical and his inscription ability was first-rate. It was said that he could break through the level of an advanced rank 9 inscription master at any time and enter the level of a spirit seal master. At that time, he would be able to condense his natal inscription mark and have the qualifications to cultivate battle inscriptions. Of course, it wasn't that easy to cultivate battle inscriptions. He still had to raise his strength to the human martial realm or above. Even so, the other party's inscription ability completely crushed him. This inscription tower had been in Tianfeng Inscription City for who knows how many years, but no one had ever succeeded in seizing it. However, there was someone helping them in Lengyu Inscription City. Thinking about it, the city lord of Lengyu Inscription City felt even more proud. He looked at the old man opposite him. This Master Qin suddenly appeared in their Lengyu Inscription City and said that he would help them seize the inscription tower in Tianfeng Inscription City. At that time, City Lord Lengyu Wen thought that he was joking. However, the latter had really defeated the Heavenly Wind City's city lord in the inscription tower's battle. If it wasn't for the latter destroying the inscription mark that he was about to successfully condense and temporarily increasing his comprehension of inscriptions, they would have already won. However, because the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord destroyed his own inscription mark, he was basically crippled. Even if his inscription ability was still there, what was the use if he couldn't use it? This time the inscription tower would definitely be theirs. Thinking about this, the city lord of Lengyu Inscription City had a complacent expression on his face, and he was full of joy. Master Qin looked up at him and snorted, "Are you sure? There won't be any changes? For example, another bet or something?" Hearing this, Lengyu's face immediately darkened. When he thought of the bet he had agreed to with Song Cheng in a moment of stupidity, he felt a heart attack. Chapter 2282. Who would have thought that the joke in Tianfeng Inscription City, who had no talent in inscriptions, would actually be able to learn inscription techniques within 12 years? He had clearly stayed in Tianfeng Inscription City for so many years, but he still hadn't learned it. Even if someone like the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord personally taught him, he still couldn't do it. The so-called rotten wood can't be carved was probably referring to Song City. In the end, after signing the bet with him, he went out to seek a breakthrough. In the end, he actually succeeded. Simply Motherf ***. Lung Yu Inscription City Lord felt a wave of depression in his heart. Then he hurriedly said to the old man, "Master Chen, don't worry. There definitely won't be any problems this time." If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid that Song City would cause trouble again, he wouldn't have even gone to look when the people of Tianfeng Inscription City set up some inscription man-seeking array. However, the final result was just as he had expected. It was just a trick to scare people and stall for time. It was obvious that the people of Tianfeng Inscription City had already run out of ideas and had no other choice. "I guarantee that the inscription tower will be ours tomorrow. And the battle inscription mark at the peak of the human martial realm that you want will definitely be yours," Leng Yu Inscription City Lord said with a flattering expression. When this Master Chen came to help them, he had pointed out that he wanted the battle inscription mark. Since Leng Yu Inscription City Lord could obtain the inscription tower, he naturally wouldn't refuse. After all, no matter how precious the battle inscription was, it couldn't be more precious than the inscription tower. However, he actually couldn't figure out why the other party didn't directly go to Tianfeng Inscription City to request to join and then directly enter the inscription tower to seize the inscription mark. After all, the people of Tianfeng Inscription City didn't stop the people of Inscription City from entering to seize the inscription mark. The city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City even advocated for the capable. As long as the other party had the ability to take away the battle inscription mark, the people of Tianfeng Inscription City definitely wouldn't stop him. Leng Yu Inscription City Lord felt that it was strange. However, when he thought about how powerful the other party was and how mysterious his background was, he probably didn't want to join Tianfeng Inscription City. After all, he had invited the other party to join their Leng Yu Inscription City many times, but the other party had rejected him. As he thought about it, he didn't think about it anymore. However, Leng Yu Inscription City Lord didn't know that as he spoke, a strange light flashed in the depths of Master Chen's eyes. Battle inscription at the peak of the human martial arts realm. That kind of trash was not his target. His target was something else hidden in the inscription tower. If he hadn't been lucky enough to know the whereabouts of that item, how could a heaven-grade spirit seal master appear in such a small 6-star domain? Why would he fight for the inscription tower for such a lousy inscription city? If it wasn't for him being afraid of exposing himself too much and attracting unnecessary trouble, he would have been able to defeat the city lord of Heaven Wind Inscription City with a flick of his finger. How could he have given the city lord of Heaven Wind Inscription City the chance to make a comeback at the last moment? With that thought in mind, Master Chin snorted. Losing to someone who hadn't completely condensed his inscription mark was the greatest humiliation of his life. Fortunately, no one here knew of his identity. Once he obtained that item, he would immediately leave this place. As for the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City, they naturally had to pay the price for this humiliation. Chapter 2283. As Master Chen thought about it, he waved his hand and asked Leng Yu and the others to leave his room. On the other side, after Luo Qingtong asked Song Qing to prepare an identity for her, she also asked him to prepare a residence for her in Tianfeng Inscription City. She asked Song Qing to send the items to her residence after he finished preparing her identity and documents. Luo Qingtong put on a veil hat and went out. "Master, where are you going?" Little Pig didn't show up when she was talking to Song Qing earlier. When he saw Luo Qingtong leaving with the veil hat, he immediately poked his head out of Luo Qingtong's bosom and asked curiously, "I'm going to prepare some things." Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She had no strength and her blood eyes were limited. Although Song Qing said that the inscription tower didn't care about strength and only relied on the comprehension of inscriptions, Luo Qingtong liked to plan ahead. Moreover, she didn't know if the power in the tower could support the operation of her blood eyes. Since Luo Qingtong promised Song Qing to help, she would do her best. Moreover, she didn't want any accidents to happen in the inscription tower. That place was a place she wasn't familiar with. Without strength, she didn't feel safe at all. "Oh." Little Pig nodded and then asked, "Then why don't you ask your master to prepare it?" Wasn't it the most cost-effective and reliable thing to ask him for the items in Tianfeng Inscription City? It's too troublesome. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. Of course, she knew that Song Cheng was the most convenient. However, he had already prepared an identity for her. Moreover, she wanted to hide her identity and couldn't let Song Cheng do everything. Otherwise, if someone were to keep an eye on him, they would be able to find out everything. Luo Qingtong couldn't let others associate her with the girl summoned by Song Cheng. Thus, other than having Song Cheng take care of her identity, she had to take care of everything else herself. Luo Qingtong put on the veil hat and walked into a pharmacy. She quickly prepared the herbs she needed. The medicinal herbs she concocted were enlightenment spirit pills that could help her draw qi into her body as quickly as possible. This kind of medicinal pill Luo Qingtong used to give a lot of people in the Luo family's Iron Army. She didn't expect that one day she would give it to herself. Originally, according to her inventory in the True Spill continent, there should have been a lot of materials needed to refine the enlightenment spirit pill in her trash ring. However, what Luo Qingtong needed was to be able to fully comprehend the spiritual aura and draw it into her body within a day. After all, tomorrow was the day when the people from Cold Jade Inscription City would come to retrieve the inscription tower. It was obviously unrealistic to ask the people of Cold Jade Inscription City to delay the date of taking away the inscription tower. Luo Qingtong could only work on the effects of the Enlightenment Spirit Pill. In order for the Enlightenment Spirit Pill's effects to be good, the medicinal power of the medicinal herbs needed to be rich and of a high grade. With such conditions, the medicinal herbs in Luo Qingtong's waist ring did not meet the requirements. On the contrary, Sky Wind Inscription City was a city in a 6-star region. Even if the medicinal herbs were of the lowest grade, the medicinal power contained in them could instantly kill the high-grade medicinal herbs in the True Spill continent. Therefore, Luo Qingtong directly went to the pharmacy in Sky Wind Inscription City to purchase. The management of Sky Wind Inscription City was excellent. Luo Qingtong didn't encounter anything bad along the way. The shopkeeper of the pharmacy was also very enthusiastic. Chapter 2284. When Luo Qingtong was about to pay, he waved his hand and said, "Forget it, you're just a little girl. Forget about this bit of medicine money. It's not a big deal." As he spoke, he sighed and said, "Sigh, this Heavenly Wind Inscription City might be disbanded tomorrow. My pharmacy might not be able to continue operating at that time. After all, the other inscription cities don't have a good person like Old City Lord Jianghu. A small shop like ours can only survive in a place like Heavenly Wind Inscription City. If it was any other inscription city, it would have long been swallowed up by those rich and overbearing shops." The shopkeeper of the pharmacy waved his hand and said, "Seeing that it's not easy for a little girl like you, I'll treat it as doing a good deed today. After all, if we can open for one more day, it's one more day." As the shopkeeper of the pharmacy spoke, he sighed heavily. A small shop like theirs couldn't be compared to a big shop. A big shop had an alchemist overseeing it so they could do well wherever they went. However, a small shop like theirs, once they left the place where they grew up and went to another city, it would be very easy for them to be squeezed out of existence by others. Not to mention that the other cities weren't as benevolent as Heavenly Wind Inscription City, with the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord protecting them. If they were to go to another place, even if they were to take root, it would be very easy for others to maliciously squeeze and swallow them up. Thus, the shopkeeper of the pharmacy had already made preparations for this to be the last day of business. He looked at Luo Qingtong, who was wearing a veil hat, and waved his hand. "All right, little girl, let's go." Luo Qingtong smiled when she heard this. She didn't insist on paying and only took out something from her trash ring and placed it on the counter. "Uncle, don't worry. Heavenly Wind Inscription City won't fall." She turned around and left. Hearing this, the shopkeeper of the pharmacy was stunned for a moment. Then, he smiled and shook his head as he looked at Luo Qingtong's departing figure. "Little girl, you're too naive." The shopkeeper of the pharmacy didn't take Luo Qingtong's words to heart. The other party probably wasn't from Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Otherwise, he wouldn't not know how powerful Cold Jade Inscription City was. The other party should have taken away the inscription tower 3 years ago. And Heavenly Wind Inscription City should have been disbanded at that time. "So I hope a miracle." As he spoke, his gaze suddenly landed on the things that Luo Qingtong had placed on the counter. Then he was stunned. This. He looked at a prescription on the counter to be a prescription. On it, the steps to concoct this medicinal liquid were written in detail. From when to add the herbs, when to start the fusion, and what color represented the success of the fusion, all of it was very clear. It could be said that as long as there was this prescription, even an ignorant person would be able to refine the medicinal liquid on the prescription. 2. He knew very well in his heart that even an alchemist who had already become a grandmaster might not be able to take out such a prescription. The shopkeeper of the pharmacy thought with his mouth wide open and hurriedly rushed out. However, at this time, there was no trace of Luo Qingtong on the street. The young girl had already left after leaving the pharmacy. That prescription was just one of the prescriptions that she had casually taken out from the Empire of Qin's Academy of Medicine students. Back then, she had used this method to deal with the students of the Academy of Medicine and had written countless prescriptions. Chapter 2285. After Luo Qingtong went back, she prepared to start refining pills. She set up layers of arrays in her room. After making sure that no one could disturb her while she was refining pills, she took out the square immortal cauldron from her waist ring. This square immortal cauldron had been in Luo Qingtong's waist ring for a long time. With Luo Qingtong's previous alchemy strength, she no longer needed to use the square immortal cauldron to refine pills. However, this time she had no strength and could not open her blood eye. To refine an excellent enlightenment spirit pill without wasting the medicinal power, she naturally needed to use the square immortal cauldron. Only this immortal cauldron could accurately control the furnace fire inside when Luo Qingtong had no strength and refine the medicinal power of the medicinal herbs inside just right. Luo Qingtong placed the medicinal herbs she bought from the pharmacy into the square immortal cauldron and made a seal with her hand. In an instant, the entire pill furnace lit up fiercely. The raging flames inside instantly soared up. There was no need for Luo Qingtong to use any of her strength. According to the steps of refining the enlightenment spirit pill, Luo Qingtong added the medicinal herbs she needed bit by bit. Under her precise control, even without the help of her blood eye, Luo Qingtong still succeeded in refining the enlightenment spirit pill. It was just that the retention rate of the medicinal power was not as good as when Luo Qingtong opened her blood eye, but it was still 90%. Luo Qingtong looked very satisfied. After all, the pills on the market that reached this level were already considered top grade. Above that level, even alchemy grandmasters would not dare to say that they were confident. Of course, if Luo Qingtong opened her blood eye, she would be able to achieve 100% retention rate. In that case, the medicinal effect would be even better. But now, 90% was already very good. It was enough for Luo Qingtong to fully comprehend the spirit qi before tomorrow, draw the spirit qi into her body again and recover her strength. Luo Qingtong took out the enlightenment spirit pill from the square immortal cauldron and swallowed it. Boom. As soon as the medicinal pill entered her body, the medicinal power inside began to circulate throughout Luo Qingtong's limbs and body. As the medicinal effects flowed through Luo Qingtong's body, she sat down cross-legged and carefully sensed the spiritual aura around her. Under the effect of these medicinal herbs, Luo Qingtong's sensitivity to the surrounding spiritual energy greatly increased. The enlightenment spirit pill was used to help martial artists open up their meridians and increase their perception of spirit qi. From there, they would be able to draw spirit qi into their bodies and step onto the path of cultivation. A single enlightenment spirit pill was enough to allow ordinary people to ignore the difference in talent. It allowed those who did not have talent and could not sense the existence of spiritual energy around them to become warriors. As for Luo Qingtong's enlightenment spirit pill, it was an enhanced version of an ordinary enlightenment spirit pill. As soon as this enlightenment spirit pill entered her mouth, the attributes and types of the spirit qi were completely presented in front of Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong circulated the lowest level of martial artist entry-level techniques and slowly drew the spirit qi that was suitable for martial artists to cultivate into her body. As for the spirit qi that was not suitable for martial artists to cultivate, she excluded it. This process would normally take a few months or even a year for talented martial artists. With the help of the enlightenment spirit pill, Luo Qingtong could easily distinguish the spirit qi and draw it into her body very quickly. Chapter 2286. The spirit qi entered Luo Qingtong's body. Soon, the cultivation technique in Luo Qingtong's body was activated. It quickly carried the spirit qi around in Luo Qingtong's body. 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 36 rounds. After 1 round of circulation, Luo Qingtong's energy center produced a strand of power. Boom. The moment this strand of power appeared, Luo Qingtong's spirit qi and medicinal power were mobilized. Soon, the spirit qi in the girl's body became stronger and stronger. The spirit qi circulation in her body also became faster and faster. Boom, boom, boom. The spirit qi in Luo Qingtong's meridians surged like waves in the sea and roared like thunder and dragons. Waves of dragon and tiger roars were emitted from her body. Then each wave was louder than the previous one, and each wave followed the previous one. Luo Qingtong's skin rippled violently due to the thunderous sound of the tide of power. Boom, boom, boom. The spirit qi in Luo Qingtong's body became stronger and stronger. In the next second, bam! The spirit qi in Luo Qingtong's body exploded. In an instant, countless spirit qi flew in all directions. In just a moment the entire room shook. This was a residence that Song Cheng had specially prepared for her. Ordinary venerables would not be able to destroy this room. Not to mention the array formation that Luo Qingtong had set up. The peak of the Holy Venerate Realm. I'm about to step into the Venerate Realm. Luo Qingtong smiled and held her hand. She felt the surging power in her body. It felt so good to have her strength back. And this time she had clearly surpassed the 9th Holy Venerate Realm and could break through to the Venerate Realm at any time. Although she was still a little short, Luo Qingtong was not in a hurry. After all, she had already reached this level. It was only a matter of time before she entered the Venerate Realm. The absorption of her spirit qi this time brought her many benefits. In comparison, temporarily losing her spirit qi for a period of time and being called trash was no big deal. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up as she thought of this. She looked up at the sky outside. Seeing that it was still dark, she immediately raised her hand and prepared to put away the square immortal cauldron. However, just as she was about to move, she suddenly caught a glimpse of a certain place in the square immortal cauldron from the corner of her eye. Luo Qingtong's hand stopped. The square immortal cauldron. The square immortal cauldron was in the square immortal cauldron was in the square immortal cauldron. The spirit. When Luo Qingtong obtained this square immortal cauldron, she knew that this immortal cauldron was extraordinary. However, she was not strong enough at that time, so she did not open this immortal cauldron. Gradually, she forgot about the immortal cauldron. Now that she saw that place again, Luo Qingtong immediately recalled what had happened. At that time her spirit qi was too weak. Now that she was a holy venerate or even close to it, could she open the square immortal cauldron's spirit qi? Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a bloody light as she thought of this. She sucked the square immortal cauldron in front of her and carefully examined it. Then her bloody eyes flashed. Chapter 2287. Bang! Luo Qingtong struck the seal in her hand and directly slapped the Sun-Moon-Mountain-River diagram of the square immortal cauldron. Very quickly, waves of white light emerged from the divine cauldron. The aura of these white lights was very powerful, and they constantly wandered around the square immortal cauldron. Luo Qingtong's power was greatly hindered. The bloody light in her eyes flickered. Very quickly, she resisted the power of these white lights and slapped out 2 more times. In an instant, with a boom, the aura of this divine cauldron suddenly flourished. Then in the next second, ka. The entire cauldron suddenly rotated from nearly 1/3 of the top of the cauldron. The entire cauldron split into 2 halves in an instant, revealing a space that looked like a mezzanine. The amazing thing was that this space clearly existed in the cauldron, but before Luo Qingtong opened it, she couldn't see the existence of this space in the entire square immortal cauldron. At this moment, the mezzanine of the divine cauldron opened, and Luo Qingtong could see the appearance of this space. Illusory form pill? Luo Qingtong looked at the pill formula that was revealed and raised her hand to take it out. At the same time, there was a medicinal herb that emitted an extremely strong medicinal power. The medicinal power contained in this medicinal herb was so strong that it almost forced Luo Qingtong to take 2 steps back. One had to know that the aura of medicinal power was the softest. Under normal circumstances, it didn't have any offensive power. However, the medicinal power emitted by the medicinal herb in front of Luo Qingtong was actually like an exposed sword aura, full of offensive power and pressure. It could be seen that the grade of this medicinal herb was very high. It was definitely not an ordinary item. Could it be a divine item of heaven and earth? Luo Qingtong looked at this medicinal herb and guessed in her heart. In this world, there were some top-grade medicinal herbs that were born naturally. Regardless of grade or medicinal power, they were not comparable to ordinary high-grade medicinal herbs. These medicinal herbs already contained spirituality. There were even medicinal herbs that were tens of millions of years old that could transform into a human form. They were extremely rare. Of course, just like plants that had turned into spirits, it was extremely difficult for these medicinal herbs to cultivate into a human form. However, the spirituality in their bodies was innate. It could be said that they were blessed by the heavens. Luo Qingtong looked at this medicinal herb and secretly guessed whether this medicinal herb was such a divine item of heaven and earth or not. However, upon closer inspection, this medicinal herb seemed to be only a small section. Even if it was a divine item of heaven and earth, it would only be a small part of its body. It contained a limited amount of spirituality, and it couldn't be cultivated. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she frowned and felt a little regretful. At this moment, she heard Little Pig's blood-weeping parasol tree? Little Pig stared at the herb that looked like a dried-up twig. The other party's branches were thick and strong, twisting and turning in a spiral. Looking at it, there was a kind of majestic and boundless aura. Was? On. Holy shit. Holy shit. This is the true blood of a phoenix that has successfully undergone nirvana. Chapter 2288. The blood-weeping parasol tree actually contained the true blood of a phoenix that had successfully undergone nirvana. The phoenix itself was already an ancient divine beast. After successfully undergoing nirvana, it was close to the level of a divine beast of heaven and earth. Even the realm beast, which was born and nurtured by the heavens and earth, was the heavenly Tao's favorite, could be compared to it. A phoenix that had successfully undergone nirvana was equivalent to surpassing the level of an ancient divine beast and reaching a whole new realm. Who would have thought that the blood-weeping parasol tree actually contained the true blood of a phoenix that had successfully undergone nirvana? If it was refined into a pill and swallowed, the person would immediately obtain the power of the raging true fire that was comparable to a phoenix's. Moreover, because it was inherited from a phoenix that had successfully undergone nirvana, the power of the raging true fire was even greater than any fire element power in the world. Sigh, it's a pity that there's too little true blood of a phoenix in it. It's not enough to form a pill. Little Pig was excited when he discovered that the blood-weeping parasol tree contained very little true blood of a phoenix. There was only a little on the surface of the blood-weeping parasol tree, and the insides weren't soaked. Even if this true blood of a phoenix was refined, it still wasn't enough to form a pill. What a pity. Little Pig's excited expression instantly disappeared when he thought of this. What the hell was worse than seeing a treasure, only to discover that it was just an empty shell when you eagerly rushed up to it? You could only look at it to satisfy your craving but couldn't use it? Little Pig's ears, which had been raised up, instantly drooped down like a frosted eggplant. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong glanced at the blood-weeping parasol tree before looking at the pill recipe in her hand. Then, her lips curled up as she said, "That's right. I'm afraid this blood-weeping parasol tree isn't used to refine the pill you mentioned. It's used to refine the illusory form pill." As she spoke, she handed the pill recipe in her hand to Little Pig. Little Pig caught the pill recipe with his two little hooves and glanced at it. Then his eyes widened. Holy crap, this person is a genius. Just who was the one who developed this pill? Is 2F** king? Awesome. Little Pig's eyes widened as he looked at the pill recipe's introduction. The words written on it were, Illusory Form Pill, Origin Pill. It can be infused with the blood of spirit beasts of heaven and earth, and after consuming it, it can transform into the original form of a spirit beast. Depending on the strength of the medicinal herbs and the level of the transformed spirit beast, one could obtain 1/10 to 1/5 of the transformed spirit beast's strength. The time limit was 1 hour. Oh my god. This illusionary form pill was simply awesome to the heavens. No wonder there was a blood-weeping parasol tree beside this pill formula. Didn't this mean that if Luo Qingtong was able to refine the medicinal pills on the list? With the true blood of the phoenix from the blood-weeping parasol tree, she could transform into the appearance of the phoenix that had successfully undergone nirvana and possess at least 1/10 of its original strength? *CK. That was awesome. Little Pig's eyes were wide open. A phoenix's true body that had successfully undergone nirvana, if it was one of the best in the Phoenix clan, it would have strength that was not inferior to its true body. Wow, what the *CK. Did that woman Feng Luan know what kind of treasure she had given to his master? She probably didn't know, otherwise she would have vomited blood and died from anger. Ha ha ha. Little Pig laughed as he thought about it. Chapter 2289. But soon, it smacked its lips and said regretfully, "Unfortunately, the aura of this blood-weeping parasol tree is too strong. With your current strength, you still can't refine the true phoenix blood in it. She would only have a chance when she reached the human martial realm." After all, the true phoenix blood was extremely powerful and contained the will of the true phoenix fire. Moreover, it was the blood of a phoenix that had successfully undergone nirvana. A single drop was enough to burn mountains and overturn seas. However, that was the blood essence of a phoenix's heart. The blood in the parasol tree was only the sporadic blood that was spat out when the phoenix underwent nirvana. It didn't possess that kind of power. Otherwise, not to mention the human martial realm, even if Luo Qingtong broke through to the sky martial realm, she might not be able to refine the true phoenix blood in it. This was based on the fact that Luo Qingtong's tyrannical strength far surpassed ordinary sky martial realm experts and the assistance of the blood eye. If it was an ordinary sky martial realm expert, just touching the true phoenix blood would burn them to ashes, let alone refining it. Therefore, even if there was a heavenly treasure, one needed the corresponding strength to possess it. Now, the sporadic blood in the blood-weeping parasol tree was just right. When Luo Qingtong's strength increased, she could refine it into a pill. At that time, Luo Qingtong's trump card would be unimaginably great. She would be able to do whatever she wanted in this starry sky and countless starfields. Little Pig was overjoyed when he thought of this. The stronger Luo Qingtong was, the more cocky he could be. When he thought of how he could do whatever he wanted even if he couldn't recover the power of his original body for the time being, he was overjoyed and completely forgot about his previous state. "Ao, master, this is a good treasure. Quickly put it away," Little Pig said to Luo Qingtong with glowing eyes. They couldn't lose such a good treasure. After all, where would they find the true phoenix blood if it wasn't in this cauldron? Even if they found other spiritual beasts, could their strength compare to the true phoenix blood of the true phoenix? What a joke. Even if they could refine a pill that could activate 50% of the true phoenix's original body strength, it wouldn't be as powerful as 1% of the true phoenix's strength. Little Pig felt smug in his heart. Luo Qingtong was naturally aware of the benefits. After looking through the pill formula for the illusory form pill, she locked it together with the blood-weeping parasol tree back into the interlayer of the square immortal cauldron. It was safest to place such a treasure in the square immortal cauldron. After all, in this world, other than Luo Qingtong who knew the method and could easily open it, others might not be able to open it even if they obtained the divine cauldron. Not to mention that they might not even know that there was an interlayer in the divine cauldron. After Luo Qingtong sealed up the divine furnace space, she didn't put it away. Instead, she opened the lid of the furnace once more. She thought for a moment, and then took out some high-level herbs from the true spill continent from her trash ring. "Master, what are you doing?" Little Pig watched as she reignited the flames in the square immortal cauldron and tried to throw the herbs into the cauldron. He was stunned. Hadn't the Enlightenment Spirit pill been successfully refined? Luo Qingtong had already recovered her strength. What pill was she refining now? It's almost dawn. Chapter 2290. At this time, shouldn't she be tidying up and preparing for the battle at the inscription tower? There's no hurry. Luo Qingtong's eyes dimmed. She looked at the flames rising from the square immortal cauldron, and a bloody light flashed in her eyes. Soon, the image of the illusory pill recipe that she had imprinted in her pupils with her eye technique began to spin in her eyes. Countless scenes appeared in front of Luo Qingtong. With the help of her eye technique, Luo Qingtong quickly extracted the most crucial elements from the illusory pill recipe. Then she searched through the high-grade herbs she had from the true spill continent. The medicinal efficacy of these herbs could not be compared to the low-grade herbs in the heavenly wind region, but Luo Qingtong did not need them to be very effective. After all, the illusory pill was a origin pill. Ordinary herbs could not completely replicate its medicinal efficacy. Even the top-grade herbs in the heavenly wind region could not. But Luo Qingtong did not want to refine the complete illusory pill. She only needed a small part of its medicinal efficacy. After the initial decomposition, combination, deduction, and evolution, Luo Qingtong quickly came up with a brand new pill recipe. The medicinal efficacy and elements of this pill recipe could be obtained through Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes and superimposed on the high-grade herbs she had from the true spill continent. It was like the fusion of red and blue and finally evolved into a purple color. Luo Qingtong superimposed the medicinal efficacy and elements of the various herbs she had in her hands. Soon she had extracted the medicinal elements she needed. This process was completely inconceivable for an ordinary alchemist. Because for an alchemist, the pill recipe determined the medicinal ingredients, and at the same time, it also determined what kind of pill could be refined. Like Luo Qingtong taking herbs that did not belong to the pill recipe, extracting the medicinal elements from them and combining them at will, was absolutely impossible. Because no one had Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes, which could see through everything and directly strike at the essence. Phew. Feels so good to have my strength restored. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. She grabbed the pill from the four-sided immortal cauldron. The pill was round and small, and its appearance and aura were somewhat similar to the pill described in the illusory form pill formula, but they were not exactly the same. If there was any difference, it would probably be the miniature version of the illusory form pill, the mini-castrated version. Little Pig was dumbfounded as he watched Luo Qingtong refine the pill from the square immortal cauldron. When he saw the pill in Luo Qingtong's hand, his eyes widened. Illusion pill? It pointed at the pill in Luo Qingtong's hand, and its jaw almost dropped. How was this possible? That was an origin pill. How could Luo Qingtong possibly refine it? Even if she could understand the pill formula with a single glance, the medicinal ingredients recorded in the formula were all extremely rare. It might not even exist in the heavenly wind region, and it might only exist in the star domains of 3 stars and above. No matter how capable Luo Qingtong was, without the corresponding medicinal ingredients, it was impossible to refine such a pill, right? Little Pig's beady eyes widened. Of course not. Luo Qingtong glanced at him. Did this guy think he was the reincarnation of a god? Chapter 2291. Without enough high-grade medicinal ingredients, it was impossible to refine the complete version of the phantom pill. If she was really that awesome, why would she need to level up? She could destroy the heavens in a matter of minutes. Luo Qingtong was speechless. Although this pill wasn't the phantom pill, it was modified by Luo Qingtong according to the effects of the phantom pill. She removed the effect of refining the phantom pill with the blood of heaven and earth spirit beasts and changed it into another effect. The other effect was very suitable for Luo Qingtong to hide her identity. Luo Qingtong looked at the pill in her hand and said with a mysterious smile, "This pill will be called the small phantom pill." She didn't expect that there would be a pill like the phantom pill in this world. With that thought, Luo Qingtong swallowed the elixir. In an instant, Little Pig saw the changes on her body at a speed visible to the naked eye. Plop. Because Little Pig was too shocked, he fell from Luo Qingtong's shoulder and heavily fell on his butt. If it was any other time, he would have already cried out. However, at this moment, because it was too shocked and incredulous, its eyes were wide open, and it forgot that its butt was hurting from the fall. Oh my God. When Little Pig's voice sounded out, there were already people impatiently rushing over to the inscription plaza at the western end of Heavenly Wind Inscription City as the sky lit up. Today was the day that the people of Lengyu Inscription City took away the inscription tower. The inscription tower was located beside the westernmost inscription plaza. It was the place where the inscription masters of Heavenly Wind Inscription City gathered early in the morning. At this moment, other than the inscription masters of Heavenly Wind Inscription City, there were other people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. As a city, Heavenly Wind Inscription City naturally didn't only have inscription masters. There were also many ordinary people, cultivators and soul cultivators. These people relied on Heavenly Wind Inscription City to survive. Now that the inscription tower was going to be taken away by the people of Lengyu Inscription City, they were naturally heartbroken. Not to mention that Heavenly Wind Inscription City was going to be disbanded. From now on, there would be no more Heavenly Wind Inscription City in the Heavenly Wind region. Everyone was heartbroken, but there was nothing they could do. Unless they could defeat the people of Lengyu Inscription City and take back the inscription tower, the owner of the inscription tower would definitely change. But if they could defeat the people of Lengyu Inscription City, why would they need to rely on the bet in Song City to escape from the owner changed 3 years ago? The city lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City had been severely injured in the previous inscription tower battle and was unable to participate in the battle. As for the other inscription masters, none of them could surpass him in terms of inscription attainments. Inscription masters of Lengyu City. Originally, by relying on Song City's bet, they could have avoided the challenge of the inscription tower 3 years ago. 12 years later, they might have been able to nurture a person who could take on Lengyu's inscription city alone. But who would have thought that the people of Lengyu Inscription City would act shamelessly and admit that they lost the bet? In reality, they used the loophole in the bet to say that the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City didn't give up the challenge. They wanted to challenge again 1 year later. Chapter 2292. But even so, the time they needed was far from enough. And the savior that Song Ching spoke of was summoned wrongly. Although no one placed their hopes on the disciple that he spoke of, they still held on to a trace of hope. But at this moment, this sliver of hope was shattered. Everyone's hearts were filled with sadness. While the people from Heavenly Wind Inscription City were gathering, the people from Lengyu Inscription City also arrived when the sky was completely bright. They stepped on the morning mist and arrived. Looking at the towering and majestic inscription tower in front of them, a trace of greed flashed across the eyes of Lengyu Inscription City's city lord and the others. Then they looked at the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City who had sorrowful and helpless expressions and said, "Haha. Everyone from Heavenly Wind Inscription City, it would be impolite for us to refuse this inscription tower." As he spoke, he laughed complacently. Then he waved his hand and was about to let someone take over the inscription tower and bring it back to Lengyu Inscription City. After all, such a magic tool naturally had a way to fly in the air. Lengyu Inscription City's city lord didn't have to worry about how to bring it back to his city. When the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City heard his words, the sorrow in their hearts was indescribable. And the shopkeeper of the pharmacy who had received Luo Qingtong's prescription and heard her say that Heavenly Wind Inscription City would not fall was also in the crowd. He was full of hope as he waited for a miracle to happen. However, until the people of Lengyu Inscription City arrived, there was still no change in Heavenly Wind Inscription City. It was still the same people. A miracle did not happen. How could this be? That little senior clearly said that Heavenly Wind Inscription City would not fall. His voice was muttering, completely unable to accept such an outcome. Senior expert, that was his impression of Luo Qingtong. Ever since the young girl gave him the prescription, the shopkeeper of the pharmacy had regarded Luo Qingtong as a reclusive senior expert. He believed her words without a doubt. However, he had been waiting for this moment, but a miracle did not happen. As for the shopkeepers behind him who relied on the Heavenly Wind Inscription City to survive, they were even more sobbing. At this moment, Song Ching stood out from Heavenly Wind Inscription City's group. Wait. Song Ching was panicking to death. Where was his precious disciple? She said that she wanted him to get her an identity and send her to her place before disappearing. Luo Qingtong's room was covered with layers of array formations, including illusory array and maze array. Song Ching could not find Luo Qingtong, so he naturally thought that she was not in her room. Before he came to the inscription plaza, he had almost turned the entire Heavenly Wind Inscription City upside down, but there was still no sign of Luo Qingtong. If Song Ching didn't know his disciple's temperament, he would have thought that his disciple had run away because the task was too difficult. Although he didn't know why Luo Qingtong hadn't arrived yet, for the sake of Heavenly Wind Inscription City and Inscription Pagoda, Song Ching still braced himself and stood out. People of Lengyu Inscription City, have you all forgotten something? He looked at Lengyu Inscription City's city lord and the others and shouted sternly, "This inscription pagoda can only be taken away after a challenge. Aren't you all being too impatient? Oh, my disciple, come back quickly." Song Ching scolded sternly while praying in his heart that Luo Qingtong would hurry over. With his understanding of Luo Qingtong, the young girl would definitely do what she promised and would definitely rush over. He hoped that she would hurry up. Chapter 2293. The people of Lengyu Inscription City immediately looked at him. Yo. Song Ching, is there something wrong with your head? A person from Lengyu Inscription City said with a fake smile, "You want to challenge our Lengyu Inscription City with just a group of defeated soldiers? I'm afraid you've forgotten why you made that 12-year bet with us, right?" The person from Lengyu Inscription City said as he sneered and looked at the group of people from Tianfeng Inscription City with disdain. Ever since the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City was injured by Master Qin, the inscription tower in Tianfeng Inscription City was already in the bag of their Lengyu Inscription City. Now that the people of Lengyu Inscription City had come to take the inscription tower, the people of Tianfeng Inscription City actually wanted to challenge them? They were simply overestimating themselves. The group of people from Tianfeng Inscription City also looked at Song Ching in confusion. They had no way of winning against the people of Lengyu Inscription City. Song Cheng's challenge was just to give the people of Lengyu Inscription City another chance to humiliate them. Why would he do that? A group of inscription masters beside the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City wanted to stand out and stop Song Cheng, but they were stopped by old city lord Zhang. Forget it. He coughed lightly and waved his hand. It's rare for Chenger to have such intentions. He wants to fight for the last bit of dignity for the people of Tianfeng Inscription City. Let's not stop him. Actually, even for me, I really can't bear to give up the inscription tower without even competing. As he spoke, he coughed violently, but his bent back slowly straightened bit by bit. He returned to his previous appearance before his life inscription mark was destroyed. His face was flushed red, but he forcefully suppressed the injuries in his body and returned to his previous glory. Teacher. City Lord. Looking at the appearance of the City Lord of Tianfeng Inscription City, the people of Tianfeng Inscription City felt something in their hearts and immediately cried out. They knew in their hearts that the City Lord of Tianfeng Inscription City had clearly decided to fight with the people of Lengyu Inscription City to the end. Even if he lost in the end, he would never give up. Sure enough, as soon as they spoke, the City Lord's voice continued to ring out. People of Skywind Inscription City, get ready. As his voice rang out, Tianfeng Inscription City Lord directly stood in front of Song Cheng. His back was straight and his face was filled with arrogance as he looked at Lengyu Inscription City Lord and the others. Lu Zhitong, your people from Lengyu City want to take away the inscription tower from our Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Sure. As he spoke, he nodded slightly towards the City Lord Lengyu who was called out by his name and said, "Just step over my corpse." The inscription tower was lost, and Heavenly Wind Inscription City was disbanded. From now on, he would never be able to touch his most beloved inscription technique. The Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord felt that his life was meaningless. Even if he lost, he would do his best. Even if he were to die, he would die standing. Master. Hearing his voice, Song Cheng was instantly dumbfounded. With his master's strength, how could he possibly gamble with the people of Lengyu Inscription City? Chapter 2294. Fighting with Lengyu City like this was equivalent to courting death. Song Cheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The reason why he stood out to let the people of Lengyu City accept the challenge was to stall for time and wait for Luo Qingtong to come. However, because he couldn't expose Luo Qingtong's identity and was afraid that the city lord wouldn't believe him, he didn't tell them about this matter. Thus, from the beginning to the end, he was the only one who knew that Luo Qingtong would come to help their Heavenly Wind Inscription City. With the young girl's monstrous talent, she might be able to help their Heavenly Wind Inscription City win a miracle. However, Song Cheng had never thought that he would drag his master, the City Lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City, into this. Thinking of this, he hurriedly wanted to explain to the City Lord. However, before he could open his mouth, the City Lord and the others on the other side had already sneered. All right. Lu Zhitong, who was also the City Lord of Lengyu City, looked at the City Lord and the others who stood out and said coldly, "Since you all want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. However, Zhang Tianhong, you have to consider it carefully." He looked at the City Lord and sneered, "Although the inscription tower doesn't allow casualties, someone like you can't even use the slightest bit of inscription strength. Even if you accidentally die inside, you can't blame the people of Lengyu City." As he spoke, the expression in his eyes was extremely cold. "There are so many of you here, you have to watch carefully. When the time comes, don't come looking for our Lengyu City to settle the score. We won't admit it." As he spoke to hear, his words were already filled with cold killing intent. This Zhang Tianhong, there was a path to heaven, but he didn't take it. Instead, he barged into hell. She was already worried about him. With Zhang Tianhong's teaching ability, other than that trash Song Cheng who couldn't be taught no matter how hard he tried, everyone who received his teachings were all outstanding inscriptionists in the 6-star region. In terms of overall strength, the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City would definitely crush their Lengyu City. Thus, even if she used the bet to force Heavenly Wind Inscription City to disband and didn't allow them to touch the inscription technique again, Lengyu Inscription City Lord's heart was still not at ease. He was afraid that the people of Sky Wind Inscription City would rise again and help the people of other inscription cities to seize the inscription tower of Lengyu Inscription City. At that time, without Master Chen's help, the people of Cold Jade Inscription City might not be able to deal with them. However, it was different now. The Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord had requested to join the challenge. With his current situation where he had lost all his inscription power, if anything were to happen to him, it would have nothing to do with Lengyu Inscription City. At that time, they would be able to kill Zhang Tianhong in the Inscription Tower and they wouldn't have to be afraid of the Inscription Association's investigation. Thinking of this, a bloodthirsty killing intent flashed in the eyes of the city lord. Hearing his words, how could the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City not know what he was planning? Immediately they all looked at him furiously. At this moment, Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's voice rang out. All right. He had already disregarded his life and death, so he naturally wouldn't care what Lengyu Inscription City Lord was planning. Song Qing was about to interrupt Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's words, but he didn't have the time. Chapter 2295. Master, oh Master. I'm just stalling for time. I'm not going to fight to the death with the people of Lengyu Inscription City. There's still hope for the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Song Qing wanted to cry but had no tears. He never thought that things would develop to such a stage. He hurriedly shouted, No, no. He definitely could not let his master take the risk. It was fine if it was the other inscriptionists of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. In any case, when the challenge began, they would definitely enter together. But his master no longer had any inscription skills, so he definitely could not enter. My master can't enter. He shouted loudly at the people of Lengyu Inscription City. Humph, your master has already agreed. Song Qing, what qualifications do you have to disagree? Lengyu Inscription City Lord looked at him with disdain and said coldly, Why don't you take a look at yourself? A person who wasn't even a beginner inscription master. What right did he have to make a fuss here? Did he really think that he was someone important? Lengyu Inscription City Lord's words rang out, and in an instant, Song Cheng's face flushed red. He gritted his teeth and was about to continue speaking when at this moment, a cold, slightly hoarse and clear voice of a youth floated over from the crowd not far away. People of Lengyu Inscription City, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. What my master means is that with just you guys, you're not worth the master ancestor's injury. It's enough for him to deal with you guys. Master, don't you think so? As this voice rang out, Song Qing instantly jumped up. His words were only halfway through when he suddenly paused. The word brother was forcefully poured back down his throat along with his saliva. In an instant, Song Qing choked on his own saliva and coughed violently. But even so, his eyes, which were so frightened that they were round, did not leave the figure that walked out from the crowd. Oh my God! His precious disciple, his peerless and obedient disciple, how did she become a man? A youth walked out from the crowd. His figure was graceful and elegant. He held the fan in his left hand. His jade-colored skin and the ivory handle were mixed together. It was hard to tell which was whiter. The young man's face was covered by a dark golden mask that covered most of his face, only revealing a pair of eyes that were like stars and moons. The starlight inside was so bright that it could compete with the sun and the moon. The corners of his eyes were slightly raised, giving off an indescribable sense of evil and unbridled indulgence, as well as a cold aura. Under the mask, her lips were as red as fire, and the red was reflected on her perfect jade-white chin. When the corners of her lips curled up slightly, it was indescribably breathtaking. Even though they couldn't see the face under the mask, they could still feel that such a young man was incomparably beautiful and stunning. However, what Song Qing noticed was the Adam's apple on his precious disciple's throat. Oh my God! The world was a fantasy. Oh my God! How did his precious disciple become a man? Disciple. You didn't tell me that you would become a man. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.